Regarding the agenda for tonight, we've got some great speakers and panels for you all today, including our spotlight panel on democratizing digital transformation and our no-code community panel on creating future with no-code, which I'm very excited to join. But we'll begin the evening with John Rymer, Vice President, Principal Analyst at global research firm Forrester. And John leads Forrester's AD&D research on cloud platforms, as well as local development platforms from several vendors. With his 20+ years experience, he is a leading authority in the fields of enterprise application development practices, platforms, and technologies. Afterwards, John will be joined by his colleague, John B, for a Q&A session with founders and community leaders. And this will be moderated by Joe McKendrick, who is a contributor to Forbes and ZDNet, and also an independent analyst. So, John, I would like to give you the stage as our keynote speaker today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great to be with you. Let me share my slides. Great to be with everyone today. Can you see my slides? Yes? I'll assume that's a yes. Great to be with everyone today. I discovered low code about 7 years ago, and at the time, we didn't really have a name for it. What we saw was products that really dramatically sped up application development and delivery, and just some really great work on software development products, but there was no name. So we came up with the name low code. Obviously, it's stuck. A lot of people use that term now to describe products. What I'm going to share with you today is kind of the latest research that we've been doing into the role that low code has been playing in the response to the COVID crisis. And we think that low code is actually going to be fundamental, absolutely foundational to this second wave of digitization of business that we're calling today the second digital revolution. and I'll explain why. Okay, let's get started. I think I called the point of digital no return. I call the COVID crisis the point of digital no return, because we see so many business processes falling apart, being compromised, failing entirely as a result of the COVID crisis. And we think we're seeing evidence that the result of this terrible situation is going to be a new wave of investment in digital business, and we don't think it's going to stop. We think there's going to be developments and benefits that we just haven't seen before. Effectively, we're going to finish what we started back around 2010, 2012, and really deliver the second digital revolution. So let's talk about the situation pre-crisis. So we've been doing research into digital transformation for we were about nine or 10 years in, and we saw a lot of activity, in large corporations, startups, etc. Obviously, so, some important startups, and a lot of activity. But there was also a casual attitude, if you will. There was not a sense of urgency in many cases. So there were investments that were being made, but as this data tells you, this is from a very large survey of developers. On their priority list, digital transformation was a moderate priority for most of them, 52%, or lower. It was only a critical or a high priority for about 28%. That's not a high number. That doesn't indicate urgency. That indicates we'll get to it. We're working on it. We'll get to it. So that's the situation beforehand. Here's some more of the situation that existed beforehand. This data actually is from a small survey we conducted just before the crisis hit. So it's a very good before picture. So you can see we asked a group of folks who are involved in delivering process automation and applications. Do you still, how many of your processes are still dependent on paper, are still paper-based? So you can see pretty good. We've been making progress over the year. 46% said few, many 24, most 6. Yeah, we're doing pretty well, but you know what? That 46% where those few processes that were paper-based, those are the ones that died when the crisis hit. Those are the ones that became the weak link and actually compromised companies' ability to do business. It was a terrible, terrible situation. We'll talk more about this in a minute. Then we also asked about the sort of halfway approach to automation. Bring the data into a spreadsheet, shoot it around an email, coordinate work. It's kind of automated, but not really. And you can see, boy, do we have a high dependency on Excel and email, 63%. Many to most to all of their processes depend on Excel and email. Those processes too, collapsed or were seriously compromised in the crisis. And then we've got this stat. When we asked, again, these process people what their priorities were, 27% said transform end-to-end process, 27% said automate large numbers of current manual processes. Again, the priority was not high enough pre-COVID crisis. It was, we'll get to it. We're working on it. We'll get to it. We've got time. So the COVID crisis hits and you don't have time. So here in the States, it really hit us in the second week of March. That's when the shelter-in-place orders came down. But what happens? You have employees working in their homes, people who were working, now working in their homes, not in the office. They're separated from all their paper files. If they depend on paper files, they're physically separated from them. Person-to-person processes, things like direct selling, where a human goes out and deals with a customer or a client or a citizen or whatever. Those were disrupted. You had to do those all virtually. Those were disrupted. We had new automation priorities arise, and I'll talk about what those were. The bottom line there was that all of the plans that we had for digital automation, digital transformation, all of the plans for automation got upended because we had new priorities that we had to deliver. And by the way, we needed them yesterday. And then lastly, because so much work moved online, existing back office systems that were not designed for the volume of work that they were hit with collapsed. And there's been some real terrible examples here in the States that actually affect people's lives and affect their health and welfare. Those are a dramatic, sudden, sweeping crisis that just changed everything. Now, I mentioned the paper processes. We've done some work on this, done some research on this. Four ways that these broke, really, and they turned out to be the weak link in the business process and business processes. So face-to-face decision making and interactions to take action, decide what to do, and take action, in selling or support or public sector kinds of situations. Some paper-based processes completely failed. We saw examples where, because the process was paper-based and because people were no longer working in the office and had access to the facilities to process the paper, the process just didn't get done. And in one case in particular, revenue just did not get collected. It was by a municipality. It just shut it down. You can imagine many other businesses affected similarly. partially automated processes like those Excel processes, well, those may not have broken down, but they really came to a crawl. And if there was any exception to an application for benefits or an application for insurance or whatever, the customers went into long wait states. And you know, if these were wait states that affected my ability to get, say, government relief, that really affects my health and welfare. That's people's lives. That's not just money. And then lastly, staff separated from files can't function without having the files. So we went into a scramble mode to try to fix these, issues. But in addition to that, we had 4 new types of applications that were urgently needed, you know, particularly in clinical health and financial services, government in the public sector. So we had 4 types of applications that suddenly rose to the top of the queue and you know, mostly were needed in a matter of days. Tracking and tracing, tests, people and locations now, research studies, the list goes on and on and on. All of a sudden, we had new needs to do tracking and tracing, and we needed applications to do it. Some folks initially tried to do it with people. It's too slow, too error prone, couldn't scale. Allocation planning and management. We all heard about the shortage of PPE and respirators, and actually the medical systems being completely overloaded with cases. So that led to the need to allocate resources, allocate equipment, allocate beds, allocate people and skills. Again, we didn't have systems to support these motions, and we needed them urgently. Program administration. In the States here, the Congress passed a huge relief bill, $2.2 trillion in value, and included in that were benefits to be distributed to you know, a large segment of the population. Well, the banking sector is how those funds get distributed, and the banking sector, then the banks had to build solutions to make sure that those funds were dispersed and that they were dispersed properly. These were not trivial applications to build. They had to be built, and then there were other program administration issues as well, like people, countries and cities that built hospitals or put in place, you know, converted buildings into hospitals in a week's time. Well, you need to have software to administer those facilities, you know, and it just didn't exist. And then lastly, all of those broken processes, you know, handling service requests, managing logistics, all kinds of new logistical problems, payments, as I mentioned, all of those new operations needed to be automated. And we needed this software yesterday, as the saying goes here in the States. So this is where you've probably been, at this point, you're saying, okay, when are we going to hear about low code? Well, here you go. This is where low code enters the picture. In our surveys of developers, which we think developers are a really good indicator of technology adoption, about half, it's probably a little more than half at this point, of developers around the world have told us that their organizations use low code or are planning to use low code. About 25%, maybe it's about 25 to 30%, are really using low code very intensively. And then the rest of them we're planning to adopt low code. So the low code platforms are in place. This is a market. It's about a $6 to $7 billion market, you know, at this point. It is in place, and low code. So low code we define when we first coined the term as having 2 characteristics. The first characteristic is don't code, or code minimally. Use a development approach that employs declarative techniques. So you're going from what you see on the top, writing pages and pages of code, to drawing diagrams, building pages, and what you see is what you can get, building information maps, et cetera, et cetera. There are a whole range of techniques that allow for software to be built much, much more quickly, and I would argue with greater quality than you can with pure coding. Second part of the definition was the business model. We found that developers that adopted low code really appreciated their ability to adopt at a low cost in time, money, and training, and to expand their financial commitment as they were able to deliver more and more applications. This was the antithesis of enterprise selling, where you pay upfront for a 3-year right to use a product, and maybe you get the value and maybe you don't. This is pay as you grow. And this is a very, very important part of why low code really took off. About 2-3 years into the research into low code, we recognized another important distinction here, in that some low code products were being built and designed for professional developers. So the idea was speed up your work rather than write code. Use low code platforms, speed up your work, produce more software with less time, less effort, hopefully less budget. But we recognize that there was a branch of the market that had emerged that is often called no code, that was aimed at business professionals, aimed at what we often call citizen developers. These are folks like, I think many of you on the call, where you don't have a background in coding, but you have a business idea, and any good business idea needs to be implemented in software. That's just the way digital works. And so you want to adopt a platform that allows you, without any development experience, to actually deliver that software. This is super important, and it's a really important branch of the market, we think, going forward as we move from the COVID crisis emergency into the COVID recovery. We think we're going to see a lot of business people contributing the software that's needed and contributing more and more software over time. And later on, you'll get a chance to meet my colleague, John Bratton-Sevick, affectionately known as John B., who is a citizen developer, and he can tell you about his experiences, and maybe you can compare notes. Okay. Low code platforms are in place. The crisis hits. How did low code help? 3 ways. First way, deliver those applications that needed to be delivered yesterday in a very short amount of time. Look at the left, quick results in delivering employee tracking applications. One company we looked at did it over a weekend. Hospital supply tracking app, crucial question for hospitals with supplies, built it in 2 days on low code. The PPP loan eligibility app, that's the big program here in the States, the big relief program here in the States. It's a complicated application. It's got eligibility, dispersal, et cetera. 6 days to build this application. I mean, that's just unheard of, but it's possible because it was done on low code. Community survey app, surveying the populace to assess their health, and the risks. The risks of the symptoms they're reporting, to start to get some tracking in place. 2 days, a little bit, 2 and a little bit. And then provisioning. A lot of workers at home need to provision them with laptops. They need permissions for the right online resources, et cetera. One company we saw built a provisioning app in 2 days. So rapid delivery of urgently needed software, really rapid delivery, of that software. Second benefit of helping companies adapt to the new reality that they find themselves in. Our favorite example is a retailer we met over in the Netherlands, who, when the crisis hit, like most retailers, had to transition from brick and mortar, which was the majority of the revenue, to online selling and online commerce. They had an online commerce site. That was the good news. They were able to start to transition over to that channel to do business. But they had to have some means of delivering product. And so they relied on the country postal system and the local delivery services. Well, we know what happened to those companies and those entities. They became crushed by just soaring demand that way outstripped their facilities and their ability to deliver. So this retailer, in a matter of weeks, stood up a delivery service of its own. They had to, if they wanted to satisfy customers and keep going with their transition over to online, they needed to have their own delivery service. And so fortunately, they had already built their core business applications in a low-code platform. And they were able, because they had done that work on a low-code platform, they were able to build a new module that helped them manage deliveries. Was it the kind of software and sophistication that FedEx or DHL has? No, but it was the basics. They got it up and running, and then because it was low-code, they were able to continue to enhance and improve it. This is really significant. This is adding a major business function to your business in a matter of weeks. This is the kind of benefits that low-code provide. And then lastly, the low-code vendors, like many vendors, honestly, but the low-code vendors went into high gear and began to offer their customers free applications, free accelerators for custom applications, special commercial terms. You know, there were, in some cases, some of the health systems, for example, needed to dramatically expand the number of seats that they had with their provider, but they just didn't have the budget allocation yet. Well, they got special terms so that they were able to get special terms so that they could expand their software delivery, and we'll work out the finances later. So there were some really great, really generous and you know, sort of humane behaviors that we saw out of the vendors that really helped with the crisis. But the big deal here is software fast, software that we need quickly, really, really fast. That was really the basis of it. So, as I mentioned, I think personally that we are seeing the beginning of the end of the emergency, the fire drill part of the COVID crisis, if you will, where suddenly the whole world changes. All these processes are broken. Oh my God, we've got to go into high gear. We're going to work 24/7, all hands on deck to fix broken processes and get ourselves up and running again. Most companies seem to be getting through that. Now they're getting into their second wave. The second wave is the COVID recovery, and that's where they will invent what I call their next normal, and that next normal will be, we think, will encompass these 5 points, and it will be another wave of digital development. So the first wave of digital transformation, was really driven by innovation. There was a lot. It really started with the advent of mobile apps and mobile commerce, and so there was a lot of emphasis on new channels, new products, new services, maybe even new business models, because again, think back, we were in an economic expansion. That's not where we are today. We're in a recession, a very deep recession. So the emphasis in this second wave is going to be on operational effectiveness and efficiency. The retailers are going to really have to double down in online commerce. It's going to really change their operations. Maybe some of them, like that retailer in the Netherlands, like Amazon, are going to have to go into the delivery business. Maybe they'll have other kinds of businesses that they have to add. But it's going to be all about operational effectiveness and efficiency. By the way, efficiency because of the recession. Money's going to be tight for a while. So efficiency is going to be crucial. Remote work, people working in their homes, we think that's going to be going on for some time. Some period of years even, some of the experts are saying. There's a variety of reasons for that, safety being the main one, but also a lot of folks who go to work in offices take public transportation. And boy, is public transportation risky in this crisis. So we think there's going to be a gradual return to work, but there's a lot of the folks who work at home today are going to work at home for a long time. And so we've got to put in place not just band-aids to band-aid systems to support that work, but real sustained, thought out, architected kinds of solutions. We need an urgent attack on the paper-based processes. No more paper-based processes. We see what happened. By the way, there's no certainty that there's no certainty that another crisis isn't waiting in the fall, or other sort of uncertainties. We've got to get rid of those paper processes if we're going to survive and sustain and thrive. Business people, as I mentioned, are going to do more development, and we've got to put in place the products, the low-code products, digital process automation products, and also the governance to give them proper support, proper funding, and guidance in order for them to really contribute. And then lastly, we're going to do this all at scale, and there's going to be a certain amount of standardization. When efficiency in a recession, when efficiency is paramount, we can't afford the complexity of a lot of diversity of products. So, some of our clients have 7 or 8 different low-code platforms. They're gonna start to winnow those down and focus on 1 or 2 to gain efficiency and to standardize. And then one other point here that's really important to understand about low-code. Some people will tell you that low-code platforms are only good for departmental applications, or they're only good for layers on top of the real enterprise applications. But they're not good for the really mission critical stuff. That's not true. We have research that's coming out shortly, where we documented 25 cases of companies that use low code to rebuild all or part of their core applications. These are the financial management applications, the logistics applications, the scheduling and payment applications that are really at the core of business operations. These applications are in scope, particularly what we're showing here as the shared services and core business operations. Systems of record tend to be much more long-lived, and they tend to be lower on the list in terms of modernization candidates. But those who say that there are limits to low-code's benefits, the evidence just says otherwise. The evidence says that there's much more benefit here, even for core business operations and applications, if we choose to go after it. And with that, I'll thank you, and we can proceed on.
Hey, thanks, Sean. That was great. Great overview of the state of the market and what's taking place out there.
You're welcome.
And we're also pleased to be joined by your colleague, John Bradensevic. We'll call him John B. Did I get that right? Okay. Senior analyst at Forrester Research, where he focuses on identifying and refining formulas for low-code platform selection, governance, centers of excellence, and development practices to support enterprises and citizen developer programs. John is also co-founder of Calabash, a business process optimization firm that has done some groundbreaking work in lean and low-code application development. So welcome, John B, John R, and
old John, new John.
Great. It's cool to be at a virtual conference of this sort. I'm used to a lot of in-person events and standing up on the podium and having everybody right there. Here, everybody's scattered all across the globe. It's kind of a need, and I guess this is the way going forward.
Absolutely.
And we're going to be joined in a little bit by some distinguished panelists selected to pitch some questions at you, and I'm just going to get the process rolling with some of my own questions. This is, of course, the elephant in the room is COVID-19 and the COVID-19 crisis and the way businesses, governments are reacting and people are dealing with the situation. At this time, most knowledge workers and perhaps most managers are working remotely. The frontline workers, that's a different story, of course, but you have entire workforces that have been shifted out to the field. A lot of these people depended on their IT departments to get things done, to do reporting, to fix applications, to provide new functionality. My question, just to start, is, what do you see happening out there? Are the IT departments, are they too consumed? Are they too busy trying to manage the situation and keep the infrastructure up? Or, what I'm trying to say is, are business users kind of thrown out there on their own now? Is this laying the groundwork for self-sufficiency?
Absolutely. John, I'll just start and then you can jump in. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it depends. It depends, Joe. One of the conversations we had was with a very, very large money center bank in the United States. The IT teams in that bank are completely consumed fixing problems, fixing capacity issues. They had to implement support for the PPP program I mentioned, and these guys are mainframe based. I mean, God help them. They are just all hands on deck, fire drill. In the meantime, there's a lot of other sort of front office and middle office processes that are broken. They can't get to them. So this is. There are other firms that are in a much better position because they have a digital platform, and they're able to respond quickly, as I mentioned. Irregardless of this, business people are having to step up here, and thank goodness, because they know their data, they know their process, they know what has to be done. The tragedy would be if the only thing they have to work with is Excel. If we can equip them with platforms to do their work, then they're actually contributing to the software strategy, and it can be governed, and their work will be part of a sustainable digital future. John, do you have comments you want to add?
John covered it pretty well. John covered it pretty well. Some IT teams are faring better if they already have low-code platforms in their tool belts and more agile ways of development. But I mean, that can only go so far, right? Like the scale of having many business people in a platform, like with all the work being done by an IT team, I mean, you can't match that.
Right.
And there are stories of business people building apps to deal with COVID. It's, as an analyst, like those aren't the people you talk to, at least in the midst of the crisis, because they're out doing the work. But even some stories have bubbled up already, and we expect there's a lot more that we don't see. One platform, it was a medical professional, so not a developer. They created an application for different countries to share data on intubations, right? So when they're putting on ventilators and things. And another non-developer, as I understand it, was unhappy with his country's reporting on COVID. So he made his own app for it and put it online and made it public. So his reporting is better than the national reporting on the COVID numbers in terms of its interaction and how it's presented and so on. So there's a few anecdotes that have bubbled to the surface. We expect there are probably thousands of things like that going on that we can't put color around, but it's happening. It's got to be.
And I would imagine all these folks working at home, they have to be scrappy and resourceful, adapting and bringing in solutions. Do you see kind of I hate to call it shadow IT, but kind of a off the books type of adoption of low code approaches as time goes on?
Well, I like to say that shadow IT exists only if you allow it to exist. I mean, unfortunately, Joe, you and I have been doing this for a long time. A lot of the central IT groups viewed work by business people, software work by business people, as rote, as something to be stamped out. Unfortunately, it was necessary because we've always needed more software than central IT groups could deliver. So for the time I've been doing this research, I've seen an awakening, what I can only describe as an awakening among CIOs and heads of IT who are beginning to recognize that they really have to start to view the business, the software that's being done by business people as part of their strategy, and they really are better off if they try to influence it in a positive direction than try to stamp it out. If they try to stamp it out, they get rogue IT, they get multiple versions of the truth, they get security breaches, they get all of the things that can possibly go wrong, which even people with the best of intentions make mistakes. Come on. So the good news about one of the really, I think, underappreciated aspects of the low code movement is that low code platforms are what we're talking about here. We're not talking about tools. We're talking about platforms. Platforms can be governed. And so the enlightened group out there, and I think we're going to see more of them, are bringing in low code and empowering their business people, helping them, supporting them, advising them, so that they can in fact become part of the strategy. And it's not rogue. It's then part of the strategy.
There's a precedent for the dynamic too. I mean, whole management consultancies spend all their time trying to install problem-solving cultures, right? Where they train business people at all levels, or frontline workers, how to experiment and think through things and establish a new standard and do process improvement and so on. So that dynamic exists, but low code allows us to do that work digitally, right? So that's the shift in thinking that has to happen. Is we've always wanted all business people to improve the business around them. That's a common piece of advice. When you have this abstracted development environment that's easy, they can improve the business digitally, right? And I think when more IT leaders begin to see that it's how those two concepts are so in harmony, I think it'll take off even more.
And John, during your keynote, one thing that came to mind is Mark Andreessen's statement from many years ago. Every company is becoming a software company.
Yep.
And by definition, then everybody in the company, from CEO on down to production level or call center level, are software people.
Yeah.
Is that what we're seeing? Is that what's happening then? To some degree, that vision is Mark Andreessen's vision is taking place.
Absolutely, software is eating the world. Absolutely,
software is eating the world.
Yeah, there's the citizen developer. There's some gaps. There's the citizen developer gap, where some companies are really have very good strategies, and they're being proactive and incorporating business people into their software strategy, as John had described. The other gap, frankly, is CEOs and executive level. Too many, we've got research on this. Too many CEOs still hold their technology operations at arm's length, and they really don't understand how critical software and technology is to them. Or if they understand it, they don't feel confident to actually get involved in it. Not that CEOs are going to become CIOs, but just we look for, like, does the CEO regularly meet with the CIO to discuss priorities and the value of software to those business priorities? And that's not common. It's just not common. It needs to be. CEOs need to be much, much smarter and much more engaged in the software strategy for this to be successful. And one thing we're seeing out of the COVID crisis is, if a business cannot function and it has a board of directors, you better believe the board of directors is pushing on that really hard now. It's like, we can never have this happen again. Listen, we may not survive, but if we survive, we can never have this kind of an outage happen again. Comes from the board level, that's a good sign. Then we're going to see proper attention and a real effort to become a software company.
And John B., you're the ultimate citizen developer here. What are the qualities needed to become a citizen developer? You know, can I become a citizen developer? What are the, what does it take to be a citizen developer?
Being a logical thinker is really it. Even professional development managers who are hiring coders will tell you that they look for a mindset more than a particular skill set in many cases. So if you went through like developer training in college, they're like, good, I know you have the mindset. Now go learn this language, right? So basically it comes down to, being willing to put the work in to solve a problem in a quality way using digital tools. So can you think logically? Can you think mathematically? Will you take the time to ensure what you make works, right? Things like that. A lot of these tools abstract it to the point where it's really easy. It's like really easy, especially doing simple stuff. So it comes down to like, is the rest of your work and life quality and done well, right? Like the mental capacity of the person is what comes through. It's not having this arcane skill set of coding in the same way. It's, can you be orderly and effective and efficient and know what it is you're doing and why you're doing it? And then you do it. So professional problem solvers tend to be excellent at this. So if like you're trying to figure out who to like put a tool in the hands of to get some momentum going, if you have like, like I had, sort of the lean flavor of improvement in my previous life, but Six Sigma guys, or everyone's got like the special projects guy or the fixer, like those guys are great. Like they will take a platform and run with it and do crazy good things with it. And then they'll get momentum going and they'll find other people and they'll mentor those people and then they'll start digitizing the world around them. And before you know it, there's a whole culture of like, why would we use a spreadsheet for anything? That's stupid. Data gets lost and we can't track anything. We can't report on anything. And I've seen this happen over and over and over again. You inject a tool, somebody runs with it, other people get excited, and the whole environment becomes digitized and they continuously improve it because now they have a concrete medium to express those improvements. That's how they do business. So
look for your spreadsheet jockeys. Your spreadsheet jockeys, they think logically, they just are working in an environment. That's a tool. It's not a platform. And that's sort of a simple way to start.
And that was the original low code, no code type of platform, right? The spreadsheets way back when, right?
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Oh yeah.
In a way.
My spreadsheet skills allowed me to learn platforms and do, the complex tools, right? When I figured out how to stagger VLOOKUPs and if logic and relate different tabs on a spreadsheet, that transferred perfectly to a low code environment. Now it was online and there were roles and reporting and security and workflow and it was just 10 times more effective.
Okay, great. And I think we're ready for questions from our audience, our panelists. We have Arpit Chaudhuri from Integramat online. Arpit, are you there?
Hey, of course I'm here.
How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. So happy to be here.
Arpit, please, John and John are here to answer all our questions. So let's
fire when ready.
Give them a run for their money.
Okay, yeah, of course. So my question is, how do you recommend companies to go about training their staff around adopting low-code, no-code solutions? And specifically, is the self-learning model sufficient?
I'm sorry, is the what model efficient?
Self-learning, like is it enough to tell your staff to learn by yourself, like learn by doing?
Oh, I see. Self-learning. Yeah.
So yeah, is the self-learning model sufficient, or what is the best way to go about training your staff?
It depends on. I hate to say this because it's typical analyst response, but it depends on the people and it depends on the person. It depends on the product. We've seen situations where problem solvers, as John was describing, or pro developers who are just good at thinking about how to use software to solve problems, have gone to a company, one of the vendor websites, signed up for a free subscription, just got started. No training, a little bit of reading sort of as they go, use the help files a little bit as they go, and they just figure it out. As John said, some of the products are very, very highly abstracted, and they just don't require a lot of training.
Right.
Other products do require training, and so we'll find, we've seen some of the products that are aimed at empowering developers, professional developers. So their value proposition is, we can help you work faster than you can if you're working in .NET, for example, or Java. Those products tend to require some training, and it can be a week, couple of weeks. To get real mastery may require like 4 weeks of training. We've seen that. Certainly I think, so it depends on the product, it depends on the person. I think actually it also may depend on the use case. As John said, simple things don't require a lot of prep and training, but if you're going to build a core application that needs to be reliable, it needs to be secure, then you probably are going to want to get some training in the platform, so you really understand how the features of the platform that are going to allow you to get to that scale and deal with the complexity and get performance out of the application. So I hope that helps. It really does kind of depend.
I have something to say on this. So I think the ideal way to go about it would be, if your goal is to empower lots of people, you would select a platform that really meets that easy threshold. Like, can you roll off a log and build something simple to get started and get momentum and, the positive feedback of having provided value immediately. So if you can, but also a platform that can be very effective and powerful. It has a lot of features and it can build large, complicated apps. There are some products that walk that balance really well. So once you kind of have that in hand, I think the way I go about it and how I've done it in the past is you let people teach themselves, of course, because they need to, but you also have an expert embedded to kind of start a little center of excellence where that person maybe knows some development and knows good, software development techniques and processes, and can maybe extend it when the native features of the platform tap out, so that they become the mentor, right? So the more difficult or riskier projects, they become the resource you go to. And of course, that relationship of being a mentor really has to be there, right? So something where people can teach themselves, but you still have an expert on tap who can help those people along and have that relationship. That's how to do it, right? It's not either or. You want to do both. You want it easy enough to learn on your own, and then you want to have an expert resource available who establishes the relationship and mentors them down the path.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And there's been a lot of conversation about having an in-house no-code, low-code expert. People are drafting new job roles, automation specialists, etc. So yeah, that makes complete sense, John. Thank you.
Right. Good luck.
Do we have another question from our panelists?
Hi there.
Okay, Philip Schenk.
Yeah, that's
welcome.
me. Hi. Thanks for having me. Thanks. Nice to meet you guys. I'm Philip from Generator. We're building a low-code software as a service platform. My question for you guys would be, in the light of that the whole idea of low-code, like having a visual metasphere for programming, for example, is around for quite some time. My question to you guys would be, what do you think is still missing in order for low-code or no-code to really reach mass adoption? So what's the core challenge so it finally reaches the mass adoption we are all looking for?
John, why don't you jump in on this first?
Well, for really big companies, there's the hairy reality that they have a lot of old, complicated, interwoven systems, and somehow introducing this as part of the fabric is a really scary architectural thought, right? So I want to acknowledge that reality. Laying that aside, I think the main gap is it's culture, basically. Like most IT and technical and software culture is basically stems from the idea that technology is an arcane thing. It's a difficult, abstract, highly specialized art form that you have to go somewhere to learn, and is easy to screw up. And and so on. And all the processes are built around that. And the interactions between IT and business are built around that, right? So it's this very difficult, very arcane, very risky, easy to screw up kind of work, right?
Yeah.
And shifting to the point where you see how disruptive the technology can be, and you realize, no, it can be very high quality, and it can be easy, and it can appeal to a spectrum of technical proficiencies and still provide value. Honestly, it's the thinking. It really comes down to the thinking. It comes down to seeing that business people can use the tools effectively. They can be managed effectively within the context of a whole IT strategy. It's fear. I mean, it comes down to fear, honestly. I mean, again, I don't want to minimize the genuine concerns about architecture, and yeah, people do make bad apps, but professionals make bad apps too. And the reality is everything that's running on spreadsheets and email right now already is a mess. Okay, so you only have up to go from here, right? So being afraid of that is illogical. That's my opinion. So I see it as a culture thing. Basically, it comes down to embedded culture, and the two sides of the equation, the business and IT, have to learn that there's this shared environment they can work in, and the IT people can really be the mentors in that. They can be the mentors. They can be the lifeline, the guy you go to help you through that tricky bit. Right? Like that's what has to go.
Philip, I just think back to Joe's the discussion Joe and I had about shadow IT. Why are we still having that conversation?
Yeah.
Why? This is not shadow IT. These are platforms. They can be governed. Why are we still having that conversation? Why do we still hear? Why are we still hearing? Oh, you can only, low code is for simple things. It's only for simple things, trivial things, departmental things. Why? It's not. That's not. The experience says that's not true. It's not true anymore. Sophisticated, scaled, secure applications are non-trivial to build, but they're way easier to build on low code and way faster to build on low code. So I just think what we're witnessing and what we're in the midst of is a gigantic mind shift about software and about the risks of software, the costs of software, and who does the work. Lastly, that's one of the biggest issues. If as John said, software is viewed as being very arcane, and we don't have the guys in white coats running around that we had in the mainframe days, but still we have a bit of a priesthood in central IT, right? They use words we don't understand when they talk to us. It's very arcane. It's very risky. It sounds really special. The idea that no, it's actually software is everybody's job is really radical for most people. And so these attitudes have been built up over 20, 30 years. It's going to take a while for them to fall away. The good news is, well, good news, bad news, because the crisis is terrible. But a crisis is the kind of thing that'll really move people because they have to. And so if one of the good things that could come out of this terrible situation we're in is real progress towards digitization, that would be a good thing.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, getting the whole company on board, developers and citizen developers, to work on the same thing, and the mind shift included you were mentioning, I see that's basically the biggest shift. And I also see the issue that since this whole thing is around, especially in the mind of developers for such a long time, they probably have like a really bad image due to like failed attempts in the past of having like an all-round solution, so to say. But yeah, I agree. Mind shift and awareness, obviously, is a really big thing. Thanks for answering the question.
You bet. Thanks for asking. We got Colorado in the house, Grace, huh?
No, we got Miami Beach in the house.
Ah.
Okay.
I've been rocking the pandemic down here. I've got, I think, 340 walking miles in since the shutdown.
Well done. Good to see you.
So John, thanks
Welcome,
for
Grace.
actually, I think you might have named low code, because when I started this, everybody was like, what are you building? What's your elevator pitch? I'm like, well, blah, 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 blah. There was no words. There was no elevator pitch. I'm like, are we going up the Empire State Building? So as you know, we've talked over the years, and our company was founded as a developer platform, developer low-code platform. So we've always aimed at the developer. So the more sophisticated solutions, development, staging, production environments.
Yep.
And our fantasy was to be a lights out platform that developers would just come and use. Running into the friction of trying to sell into the enterprise and getting them to adopt, we've sort of transitioned to being like a supercharged services company around our own platform, because we've never had a client that wanted to do it themselves. They're like, you know what, everybody in my company has a day job. Can you just go build this? So I'm wondering, and my view is that there is room for sort of technology-centric services like this, because you're not going to be able to staff even a low-code department at every company, And so I'm kind of wondering what your view is there. Like, is there sort of the IBM Global Services of low-code space that's emerging?
It's a great point. I'm glad you brought it up. It has the vendors who provide both platforms and professional services to implement solutions on those platforms has been a feature of this market from the get-go. And it's for precisely the reason you outlined. A lot of large enterprises, there's nobody home. There's no spare people there to work on it. So it's not universally true, because you'll find some enterprises, particularly if they decide that, if they make a strategic decision to shift from, say, .NET to a low-code platform, or Java to a low-code platform, then the developers shift over. But yeah, there's particularly in the early stages of adoption, we find the vendors' professional services are really critical. They prime the pump. They get the first use cases, first proof points out there. In some cases, though, Grace, I think we are going to see hybrid companies where they are providing services on their own platform, and they've got a mixture of customers that use the platform, and those who also hire the vendor for for their services, for their expertise. The question that I have is, in mature software markets, eventually those two functions, professional services and product, split. And because pro services tends to want to be independent of product in the past anyway, and products tend to want total focus, and you get a certain business model associated with products. At this point, it's a function. The combination is common, and it's producing value. I just don't know. I wonder, in the future, will we see the split? I don't know. We'll have to
I don't think so. I think you're going to differentiate based on how close you are to your services to your platform, because it's the only way to keep the platform tight and not sort of sprawling into the wonderland that happens when too much product management takes over in the place of customer demands, customer demands.
No, that's a fair point. How do you feel about industry specialization then? Do you think that's important?
So it's helpful. So it's really more API specialization. So when we go in and learn a new domain, it's about understanding the APIs of all of the underlying systems that we need to connect in that domain. Mm-hmm. In particular, these lab testing platforms that we're working on now, and understanding that, none of these laboratory information management systems have APIs. They're literally just one test manufacturer spitting out a device, the device spits it out to their limbs, and then, it's a catastrophe for throughput. It's one of the reasons why we don't know where any capacity is in the country. There's hundreds of thousands of these little labs. And so once we learn that, the second one, it takes like 10% of the time of the first one, or hemp, right? Once you learn the industry regulatory side, the payment side, how to pass due diligence, even from a systems perspective, then it takes 10% of the time. So I think it's helpful. It doesn't really change the platform at all. It's really more of a API understanding and what you're going to crash into.
Interesting. Thanks for bringing that up. Great point.
My pleasure.
Stay safe.
I am. I'm safe, man. Look, what could go wrong?
Look at that view. Yes. Beautiful Miami.
Yep. I think it may be my new home. It was just a trip when it started. Now I've got a realtor.
All right, be well. Do we have another question? Looks like Christoph.
Yes. Christoph Ruger, welcome.
Hey everybody, hi, I'm Christoph from Synesty. Yeah, we are also a cloud middleware integration vendor. And yeah, I could not agree more with Grace, working together with the customer and providing professional services pushed us very far forward and is a good idea to do. We learned a lot. Yeah, so I followed this discussion with great interest. So, and my question is also a bit from the vendor side. It's about pricing of no-code platforms, and I would be interested, John and John, what are your experiences, what you're seeing? So, what are the driving factors of pricing of no-code tools? Is it mainly efficient? I mean, tools make you more efficient. How do you put a price tag on that? So how do you make it predictable so that you know what you're paying? Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, pricing, to be honest, Christoph, pricing gives me a headache. It's so difficult. And I don't think anybody's really got a great answer, come up with a great answer. Yeah. What I can tell you is kind of what we've seen, patterns that we've seen that seem to work, and patterns that don't. So one, particularly in the citizen developer arena, it seems that many organizations are satisfied with per seat pricing. Per seat pricing, like every other pricing model, has its downsides. It has its imperfections, but it seems like per seat, is like good enough. Now, obviously, you've got to price your product optimally so that it's not too expensive and you drive people away, and you prevent spread, from the initial adopters to broader communities. But that seems to be an acceptable model for a lot of the clients. A free tier is really important, I think, across the board. If you have a free tier, there's a chance that a developer, a partner, a person who's trying to build a company, like some of our people that are with us today, will be able to engage and begin to learn about the product and whether or not they think it can work for them. If you don't have a free tier, they never do that. They can't do it, and you'll miss out on opportunities. The anti-patterns are to be opaque and to hide costs. So some of the vendors, who shall go nameless, are pretty opaque about their pricing. They'll say, when you go to their website and you ask them, how much will this cost? They'll say starting at X. Well, then how the costs are likely to behave as you engage more and more is just a mystery. Or you have to engage with a sales rep, and people just don't want to do that. So I'm a big fan of transparency. I recognize that it's difficult. Transparency is difficult because the use cases are highly variable, and the way that costs behave for one use case may not translate well to a different use case. But transparency is what people want, and I think that's what we're going to need. And then the other transparency, I think, also yields then predictability. That's the other thing that people are afraid of is, I'll oftentimes hear, these are proprietary products. And what if I lock myself in and then I'm hostage? So what they're really worried about is predictability, hidden costs, accelerators of costs. that they just don't see in the initial engagement, and it busts their budget down the road when it's too late for them to, to really do anything about it. John B, you got any ideas about this?
One thing I can add is there's sort of a traditional rule of thumb for software that you should charge X% of the value. You should capture X% of the value somehow through whatever your pricing model is. I've heard like 25% from some people. I don't know how well that holds. I don't think that applies to this because I think that's coming from the model where, again, software was arcane and you built a best-in-class point solution and you sold it. And I think with a platform, I don't think it's the same at all. And I think that's important because I think a lot of the people selling these platforms sometimes bring that mindset when they price, and I don't think it's quite right because this is meant to be a broadly used, scalable. The app could be this really big or this big, right? And then what constitutes an app, right? Is it an extension? It's a very different thing. I think that mindset can get in the way.
It's a great point, and it highlights another factor, Christoph. When in the early stages of low-code adoption, transparency is really important. Predictability is really important. When you get to the point, like some of the vendors have very long-standing, like 10 years, 12 years of engagement with customers, and the customer is using that platform very, very deeply and extensively across their business. At that point, you can probably have a discussion. You can have a discussion about business value because they're all in, and they found that the basic business model is works for them. So at that point, you could have a conversation. But trying to have that conversation right up front, I agree with John. It's going to just lengthen your sales cycles.
Okay, thanks. These were interesting insights. A lot of topics we internally discussed and I recognized. Yeah, but good to know. Thanks.
You bet. Good luck, Christoph. It's just a hard topic.
It is. That's why I asked.
Great. It looks like we're ready to move on to the next phase of our program here. It's 15 minutes after the hour. And I want to thank John Rymer, John B, for joining us. This has been a fantastic discussion. We covered a lot of ground, a lot of interesting points and concerns and opportunities we see in the low code, no code realm. It was a great learning experience from both of you.
Great. Thanks
Excellent.
for inviting us, and best of luck to everybody on the call.
Yes. By the way, these are my people. I'm reading like the chat. I'm like, these are my people. This is so great to be here.
The citizen developers are taking over the world.
Absolutely. It'll be a better world for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, agreed.
All right.
Guys.
Best of luck, everybody, and stay safe.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the next phase. We have a distinguished panel with us this evening, afternoon, wherever you may be at morning, wherever you may be at this time. It's a global conference, and what's cool is is everything's digitized. We're all here virtually. We're not in an actual conference situation where we're waiting for everybody to leave the room, and then the next set of panelists to get set up in their seats in the front, and everybody to come in. Everything's ready to go. So this is an interesting experience, and I want to welcome, starting with Arpit Chaudhuri, who you saw a little bit earlier in our discussion, head of growth at I'm gonna say
Integromat.
Yeah. My apologies. I didn't mean to.
No worries.
Integromat. That actually has a nice flow to it. It flows off the tongue nicely. Integromat. I like that. Okay.
Thank you.
Philip Meissner, Chair of Strategic Management and Decision Making at ESCP Europe, a very distinguished school in Paris. Welcome, Philip.
Thank you.
And Ben Tossell, founder of MakerPad. And I've heard a lot of great things about MakerPad. It's a great example of no code, low code capability.
Thanks, Ari.
Welcome, Ben.
Cheers.
And Joita Das, CEO of Giana. Did I get that right?
That's right. Hi.
Hi, welcome, and we look forward to your involvement in the panel. And Frank Bomer, CEO at Ninox, and I just want to express my great appreciation to Frank and the folks at Ninox for making today's virtual conference possible.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. And I think the whole team is really excited about how many people are joining from all over the world. We've seen it in the chat from every major city, literally someone is joining today. So really excited to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, I've seen just about all continents, folks from all continents, Singapore, North America, of course, all across Europe. It's great participation. And let's get started. The first question I want to put out there, everybody, is how are things going in your own organizations? With the COVID-19 crisis. Some of you have been involved or been impacted by it by at least 3 months now. In North America, it's been 2 months for us. We've been feeling the impact. And Philip, let me start with you. How are things evolving in it's an academic environment, and of course you've had to close for a while, and everything's been virtualized, I imagine. How are you coping?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything is virtualized, as you said. So we've moved all lectures online now. So we spend a lot of time on Zoom, not only for our video calls and webinars, but also for all the lectures. And so we have been able to transition this quite smoothly, I think, because there were many processes and technologies already in place. And in the academic environment, as a professor, you pretty much can work from wherever you want, as long as you have a telephone connection and a Wi-Fi connection. So it has been quite a smooth transition. Although, I mean, you must really say that you cannot fully replace the in-class experience for our students virtually. Yeah. So as long as we don't have VR, I think this will be hard, as good as Zoom may be.
Mm-hmm. And Joita, how are things going in your organization?
Things have been pretty great for us, probably because a lot of my organization are introverts. So we've been awkwardly unsocial for a really long time. So now we have a real reason to be so. And we've been very online from day one, because a little bit of my team is in New York and Sydney. So for us, it was just one more step. Business-wise and selfishly speaking, it's been really great for us. Our users have been growing 25% week on week for 16 weeks now. So we had an insane spurt in activity. And so overall, to be honest, I can't believe things will get back to normal soon. We're really enjoying this. Sorry, this sounds so selfish. Sorry, guys, forgive me. But yeah.
Yeah, it's what they call the new normal, right? And maybe it's the new normal is becoming the normal.
Yeah,
in some
maybe.
Ways, right? And Ben, how are things going in your operations?
Yeah, actually, same as Joita. I won't say like great for it, but it is, our best 2 revenue months ever business-wise. We actually closed our users wait. So we've got a wait list now, which is growing hugely every week, but we send out invites and stuff. But as a team, we've hired more people. I think the major thing is I can see that like people are getting stressed, including myself. Like mentally, just you don't realize how much like going for dinner and drink once like a week actually changes your whole week. So I've definitely noticed it myself and my team. I can see just chatting on Slack and Zoom is just not enough. Even though we are all remote anyway, we need to have just get off the computer, stop looking at it on the weekend, and just forget about work for a bit. So we're all trying to do some of that.
Okay, and Arpit, how are things going? For you?
Okay, yeah. So at Integromat, we've been experiencing growth, definitely. So our user base is definitely growing, but at the same time, a ton of our paying customers are from local businesses, people from real estate, people running restaurants and other local services, or agencies serving local businesses, and they are definitely impacted, so a lot of our customers are impacted. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get in touch with people based on, so when someone cancels their subscription, we ask them a few questions, and then we get in touch with them if it makes sense to like offer some sort of help, just to understand what they're going through, or how Integromat can really just help them in the current situation. So on one hand, our user base is definitely growing like pretty fast, but then at the same time, a lot of our customers are badly affected. So it's like it's a mixed situation for us, So we're just trying to figure out what is the best way to kind of balance that, where we do not just let go of our existing customers and only focus on new customers. We're trying to like find a balance there.
Mm-hmm. And Frank, I want to ask the same question to you, but first I'm curious, was this conference initially planned to be an in-person conference, and you switched modes and made it all digital, or were you planning to make this digital from the beginning? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, we used to host a couple of events, even the last year, which have been on-site events. So we try to establish a very close relationship with our customer base and users. And I think in normal times, we would have planned for this event as maybe a local event here in Berlin. But the whole change in the situation kind of shifted our thinking around how we can communicate to our customers and how we can also reach more customers, actually. And we started to run way more webinar formats. And I think from this thinking came the idea to start and launch an online conference. And to be honest, I think it's very, very good way to reach people around the world. And also it's maybe even more economically and ecologically feasible to do it this way.
Absolutely, great. Okay, looking at the broader market, looking at your markets, what have you seen an impact? A couple of you have described an increase in your business. There's more people coming to you for solutions to help their end users that are working remotely. So I'm curious to get your take on how this is impacting the no-code, low-code market space. Is this kind of a catalyst to move the market forward? And Arpit, why don't we start with you? Is this a catalyst? Is this spurring new ways of working?
You're on mute, Arpit.
Yep, sorry. So yeah, it is actually a catalyst. It is unfortunate because it's like on one hand, so many people around the world are so badly affected, but on the other hand, companies like ours are definitely benefiting, as Joida just mentioned earlier. So yeah, it is a catalyst. It is making people curious, and of course people have more time. A lot of people have a lot more time. So people are exploring different tools. There have been so many people who've always been like, hey, we really want to try out your tool. We really want to try out your service. We've heard great things, but we just don't have the time. And now everyone has so much more time. So it is like, yeah, it's very beneficial for those people because they're actually now being able to explore all of these great solutions out there that they just couldn't earlier because it just wouldn't fit in their workflows. And now they're able to try out these new solutions, so it can help them in their businesses. And as service providers, we are definitely seeing a lot of surge and like a lot more engagement on social media. People talking about solutions, people building solutions and sharing them, and like just there's a lot of buzz, and it's actually a good thing for us. So yeah.
And Joida, you talked about your business seeing a substantial uptick. What's obviously everybody's working at home, everybody's remote. They may be cut off from IT support. What do you think is the catalyst that is? What do you think has changed? Other than the physical location of employees, what has changed in their thinking? that they're
I
looking
think
to
it's
adopt?
primarily a behavioral change. And I think I was speaking with Frank in a podcast just a couple of days ago. He was Frank and Alex were my guests, and we were speaking about this. So, well, the whole low code, well, specifically the no code movement is about empowerment. You want to feel more empowered. This is something that makes you feel more powerful and more clever because you can get more stuff done and you can do things that techies normally do. So it's really about knowledge workers. And I think in this time of crisis, the only job that has been completely uninterrupted and work from home has been knowledge workers. And so they've realized, probably all of us in some way, that the things that we needed to move to within 2 years have been collapsed to a really short period of time. It's been very rapid time for innovation in our workspace. I mean, our homes have been transformed. Living rooms have like monitors and different sets, and there's like a surge in buying online furniture that says comfortable chairs from work from home. People have done SEOs on their furniture stores and they're selling like hotcakes. So this is stuff that we had to do anyway. In the next 5 years, you would have done this anyway. You would have worked more from anywhere and you would have used a lot more tools, but it has accelerated that so much more. And I think that it's that. And the second thing, I would break it down a bit further by saying that one particular thing I'm noticing is that you basically want more access to technology when you have less instincts. When you have more great instincts about something, you don't care about tools. I'm a great gardener. I've done this for 20 years. It's my garden. I don't need to read a book because I'm so great at it. But in this current world, the word unprecedented is so on top of everything. What that means is none of us really have instincts for this new world anymore. I mean, what intuition are you going to talk about a world you can't even recognize right now? The instincts and the intuitions are falling apart. So the only thing we can really do is turn to technology because it's neutral and it's going to show us something. And so almost everyone feels that a little bit of their helplessness will probably be mitigated if they turn towards technology. Rightly so. This is really our only hope. We can't really operate from instincts anymore. So I think all of that behavioral change and the acceleration is probably what's driving this, but I'm very happy to hear what our other panelists think this might be.
Okay, Ben, employees need more self-sufficiency. Do you see that driving your business?
Yeah, I think operational efficiency is a huge thing that people are looking at, whether they're having to downsize their employees or just get more efficient. So I think lots of people are looking at that, and we're definitely seeing more companies asking like what is possible. Because what we try and do is make sure that it's not just the entrepreneurs who benefit from the no-code space. There's so much stuff you can do at work. You can automate your whole podcast production process if you wanted to. You could do sales outreach and data enrichment and all of these things. So we're trying to do more focused like lessons and things like that, so that you can sort of put that in front of people's faces to show what is possible. But actually, as reaching the entrepreneurs is almost one of the best ways, because we see a lot of people identify as an entrepreneur even if they have a day job. And if you get them to the aha moment for something they're trying to learn for their own personal project, they can go and take that to their boss and say, hey, I can help us save 10 hours a week doing this thing because I found Integromat, Zapier, whatever else to link these things together and remove some of those pieces. So get to the entrepreneur is actually quite an interesting path into the enterprise as well.
That's an interesting point as well. It would seem with this type of solution, it is entrepreneurial. You can achieve a lot of innovation, and the folks that can, as we were saying earlier, software is eating the world. Every company is a software company, and the entrepreneurs are those who can create these software companies, these software-driven companies that can bring new solutions to their markets. And it doesn't have to be the folks who are out there starting their own business. You could be an intrapreneur as well. You could be part of a division of a small company, or I'm sorry, the smaller division of a company of a larger company that needs that innovation, that burst of innovation.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's tinkerers in and outside of companies, whether you've got a podcast that you like doing or not, but it's just finding those champions, that the sales builder who works in the sales team but wants to be that champion for that team and help promote these things to their boss. So yeah, we're definitely looking at ways we can encourage that too.
And Philip, who do you see? You're in an academic environment, professors, you have administrative staff, you have students. Who do you see moving to these solutions, these no-code, low-code solutions? Is it other professors who are building their own initiatives, or do you see the administrative staff of your institution going in this direction?
I don't think that there's a wide movement towards this yet. And I think the larger the organizations get, that would be my assumptions, the harder the adoption would be. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But I think in general, what we observe, at least in Europe, is that this whole topic of digital transformation is now gaining momentum. Yeah, so many companies, especially smaller, medium-sized companies, have slept through this for the last 5-10 years, and now it's picking up speed. And I think if you can offer simple solutions that don't require or that don't put in a high barrier to entry, actually, so a simple, easily applicable and adaptable solution, then there will be a huge market and a huge demand also from these customer demographics.
And I'm sure you look closely at the rate of entrepreneurship and innovation across companies. Do you see potential with low code, no code, the ability to deploy software and build a business overnight? Is this a driver for innovation that is badly needed everywhere in the world?
Yeah, definitely, it can be. I mean, if you just look at Germany, we have 150,000 open IT positions. Yeah, so I think there's a big chokehold to growth and to innovation, which is IT related. And anything that contributes towards overcoming this lack, I think, is a big contributor on every level to innovation and to growth, right? It can be on the entrepreneurial level, and this can be on the intrapreneurial level, as you said, or it could be on the corporate level.
So you don't necessarily have to be a Silicon Valley whiz with programming, knowing Java and C# or whatever. It isn't limited to the whiz kids of Silicon Valley.
Yeah, and I mean, the only thing, I mean, I'm not a very deep expert in this technology, to be honest, but I think the only thing that companies will look into is this really something that allows me also to differentiate myself with the solution that I develop, or is this something that everybody can very quickly and easily replicate? And this might be something that people also look into when they select these tools, right?
Mm-hmm. And Frank, typically, who do you see buying into your tool set, your platform? Is it folks with more technical proficiency? Is it entrepreneurs? Is it, how would you describe your typical customer?
Yeah, that's a very fair question. So I think when you look at the landscape of no and low code vendors, the vendors are taking different approaches and different angles to place their products. And we strongly believe in that no code is not only a technology that kind of increases the efficiency of IT departments, but it actually can change the whole way how business units and IT departments work together. And that's why we really try to focus on the actual end users. So the users in the business units who really understand their problem domain and who are eagerly waiting for solutions, and they're asking their IT departments, but in the past with the traditional development approaches, it just took too much time and too much efforts. There was some gap in communication, misunderstandings, and which often leads to not optimal solutions. And we think with no code we can overcome this communication gap as well. And that's why we actively try to find users in the business units, and also actively try to find what we call the champions. So someone who understands the problem domain, but is also eager to solve the problem and utilize a platform like ours.
Okay, great. And a question I want to put to everyone. when we talk about the citizen developers, the adopters of low code, no code, we're typically talking about the knowledge workers, folks in offices and in office environments. I'm curious about the frontline workers, and that's maybe 40 to 50% of the workforce here in North America, as I'm sure it is across the world. Technicians out in the field, production line workers. I'm curious, do you see these kind of solutions also available or reaching frontline workers who typically aren't in traditional office environments and likely aren't working at home? They're probably still out on their jobs, on their assignments. Joyita, do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, at this point, I'll be honest, Joe, I'm not quite sure what percentage of them use it. There's probably a percentage, but it's probably not significant. But honestly, that's my passion. I eventually want to reach a point in the year 2025 when all blue-collar workers are also using these technologies to empower themselves, make good decisions about their jobs they do, their efficiency, their operations, their little bookkeeping and the things that they do. Because when we can achieve that, I think that'll be a truly revolutionary part in global economy when when the benefits of the technology, like you said, from the Silicon Valley guys, goes down to this 1.2 billion knowledge workers, to the blue collar workers, and that'll be fabulous. That's really the big dream. I don't know how much we're there yet. At least we are not as a company. We want to be. We are not. We're still very much with the knowledge workers. We haven't gone down the pyramid, but that's my grand goal. That at some point in the next few years, we reach a point where we saturate this layer and we go further down and empower them as well. It'll be great to have my mom use it someday without asking a lot of questions. That'll be great.
Arpit, you mentioned you're working closely with your community. Do you see frontline workers getting more engaged with no-code, low-code platforms?
Yep. So I don't see them actually using these tools, but they can definitely be the beneficiaries of companies adopting low-code, no-code solutions. So, for example, we have a lot of people from like manufacturing, a lot of traditional industries now using our solutions, and basically what they're doing is, instead of relying on their engineering teams to build apps and stuff that will essentially make the jobs of the frontline workers easier, they're tinkering with low-code solutions to be able to build products or build solutions that will benefit the frontline workers. So a good example is that like a lot of these technicians, they will have so smaller operations, they cannot afford to build their own apps, right? So a lot of these people hack together different tools to build like a Salesforce app or like a field worker app, where a technician, once they finish the job, they can mark it as complete. They can see exactly where they have to go next, things like that. People are actually using chatbots, so they don't even need an interface. They're using Facebook Messenger. They're building a chatbot, and it's just meant for internal purpose. And basically, a technician can interact with it. They get the information that they need just when they need it, without actually adopting a new solution, learning a new tool, or learning how to use an app. So yeah, like these people are definitely going to be benefiting from companies. And when I say companies, I definitely stress on like small businesses. So like small businesses adopting low-code solutions, not relying on like dev shops to build elaborate solutions, tools that would require training, etc. And just like basically use tools that everyone is familiar with, things like a chatbot or like a Google Sheet and stuff like that, and basically empower the frontline workers. And that is already happening, in a range of industries. Like real estate is also a very good example.
Can I add something to this?
Sure.
Yeah. So even if we consider a frontline worker not actively utilizing the platform, if you think about the whole development model and how a feedback loop can look like, so if there's coming maybe ideas of how things can be improved from the ops teams, and you have a platform that lets you experiment with this and you see immediately the results, that's a huge improvement for the whole way how the different units can work together.
Yeah.
And Philip, there's been I'd say for years there's been concern about what's going to happen with the frontline workers, with production workers, blue collar workers, semi-skilled, or those with more manual skills. What automation, AI, and the growth of IT, of technology, is going to do to these jobs, displace these jobs. Is the ability of is the ability to get more frontline worker buy-in to technology via such platforms, is that going to help the situation?
Definitely. I think we are going to see a huge wave of retraining, reskilling of workers. I think Mark Andreessen said it, there's always a net gain in jobs. It's not a net loss, but it's different jobs, right? So we have to reskill them, and the lower the barriers for this, or the easier the tools to actually reskill them. So if somebody doesn't really have to learn an entire programming language, but can really do this based on a no-code or low-code solution, I think this will tremendously benefit this transition and empower them, frankly, yeah.
Okay, Ben, do you see, are you working with companies that deploy technology to the front lines? Are you seeing this?
We helped the NHS here in the UK build some solutions to manage some of their processes whilst this was all starting to kick off. Things like having multiple spreadsheets that you'd want to have in one portal, and people have access to different types of things. So something that would probably seem more simple to us in the know of the no-code, low-code space, but that seems almost like unmanageable from the NHS side of things for nurses and doctors who needed access to things like that. So we've done things like that and seen people build small apps. I released a template for like restaurants to be able to do online ordering and deliveries and things like that. So we can see small things that can make a difference, and I think thousands of people use that, and I keep on getting emails today about implementing this. So there's small things that can really help. And yeah, I think it's just getting it in those hands, but I don't know like implementation of on actual for the sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. We're calling this conference the second digital revolution. I think that's a great name for it. The first digital revolution was driven by the IT community, the software developers and so forth, who from the 1970s or 80s on have built the world as we know it, basically. And now we have the second digital revolution. Low code, no code. The business users, you don't necessarily need to have a strong technical background. You heard John Rymer and John B talk about the building core applications for companies. We were talking about ERP, financials, and that type of core critical business functions that typically IT would guard and behead anybody who try to approach the server room. I'm curious, what do you see as the future for professional software developers as a profession? Would you tell young people to go into programming and application development, or do you see the world turning another way? And Ben, we'll start with you.
Yes, I don't believe that learn to code was the right terminology for what people were talking about. Everyone's saying sort of learn to code. Yes, I think everyone should become a software developer, but the implementation of how that happens, I think, is probably going to change over time. So as we don't write in zeros and ones anymore, then I think this abstraction and the evolution of writing the software is going to change. But it's not no code, low code versus code. We're all on the same team. Everyone is wanting to create software. It's just like I can't physically write code because I just cannot read. Like it doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for my brain. So there needs to be other ways that we can empower more people. Things like 99% of the world cannot write code at this point in time. But if you put an iPad in front of a child and told them to like move some blocks around into what something looked like a website, you could easily see them do that intuitively. I think that we're going to need more coders than ever. So there's no like losing side here. Everyone's just on the same side. So often these conversations are kind of one versus the other and pick a side. But I don't see that at all. Everyone wants to create software. It's just how we do.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of convergence taking place. Frank, what do you think? Would you tell young people to go into programming?
Absolutely not.
For future?
I'm a passionate developer by myself, so I'd encourage everyone to study computer science for sure. But I tend to agree with Sven. So there's definitely not a competition between no code and code. No code is not the end of code. It's when you look back at the slides John showed with this picture where today we only see the tip of the iceberg of processes being automated. Every time we increase efficiency, actually the demand rises here. And that's why I think no code will grow and code will also grow at the same time.
Okay. And Philip, are you seeing how is the demand for coursework in terms of coding, software development, computer science, AI, all that good stuff? Will that continue?
Yes, I mean, I would definitely agree with Frank. I think it's not either or, it's both. And there will be always different segments in markets. Yeah? And I think it's a very good skill to learn. And I would encourage everybody to do that. And when we look at the business school environment specifically, I think we will also see a lot of changes in the way people will learn. People are learning. Will be more virtual, more online. There will be more tools coming in. And that's also, I think, a huge opportunity to enable professors to do this themselves, right? I mean, at the moment, when you want to do online courses, you have to essentially rely on other people that do post-production for you and all of that. If this could be automated, if people could learn more easily to code based on these set of skills, I think this would be great.
And it's interesting, if you want to go into science, chemistry, or anything like that, you have to know coding. That's a big part of the any scientific pursuit. Joyita?
Yeah, I definitely have something to add because I do come from the background of pure programming. So I'll tell you this interestingly. When I got my first computer, I was 10, 11 years old, and I was in a developing nation. So the best way to get this amazing desktop with everything was not to buy it off the shelf. You had to go around to different stores and pick the best components and assemble them. So I learned how to make, the buses and everything, and how do you have a memory chip, the whole deal. Today, that basically means that there would be less than 50 million computers in the world. But that's not true. All of us have it. So if you want a great deal for a desktop right now, what do? You Google. But does that mean there's less hardware engineers now than at that time? That's not true. The number of hardware engineers since then has tripled. So will there be way more software engineers from today into the future? Significantly so. But there'll be way more use cases as well, and the whole world will have access to it. So we are specifically no code for data science. So what that means is you would be able to perform data science without doing any code at all. And the number of data scientists in the world right now is less than 150,000 put together. Will this be a lot more 5 years from now? Of course, there'll be probably up to 250,000 data scientists in the world, but there will be also many millions of people, probably 1 billion of them, who will access a little bit more data science in their life than before. And we will be catering to them. So do I encourage people to get into coding? Absolutely. If that's your calling and you want to get into it, be that 250,000 people. But if you want to do something else, you want to get into energy, you want to get into chemistry, you want to get into design and architecture, don't just think that this is my only option. You could go into all of those things and use the power of code to do what you want in those professions.
And I've heard it described as a polymath. You understand the power of computers, and you can exactly as you said, you can intermingle that with health, with energy, and come up with great new solutions. And Arpit, should I tell my daughter to go into programming? What's your verdict?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Women in STEM, absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Like definitely, I think everyone, especially at a young age, should give it a try and see if they like it or not. But if they don't like it, they definitely should not be like pushed into it, because it can get you a big fat paying job. I see a lot of people wanting to learn to code just to get a good high paying job, which is fine if that is your goal. But a lot of people who also want to learn to code to be able to build something and be an entrepreneur and run a business. That's where I feel like learning to code is not the ideal solution. If you don't want to if you don't love writing code, you'll never be a good programmer. So there's no point learning how to code just to build your own software business. There are much better ways to do that. And just to add to Joita's point, I would say more than learning to code or learning no-code tools, it's really about being data literate. So I think data literacy is something that will become really important, because no matter what you do today, like if you're a knowledge worker or whether you're a core technical person or you're working in sales, marketing, etc., like knowing and understanding data is really important. And of course, if you're going to be using and building stuff using no-code, low-code solutions, understanding data is really important. So I would say data literacy is something that's really important, and we see that a lot even at Integromat. When people explore the tool and they haven't really used a lot of such tools before, they kind of obviously find the learning curve really steep. And we've just seen that, people who are learning the basics of data, how to work with APIs and stuff like that, all without code, they're the ones who are really enjoying using tools like Integromat, other automation tools, other low code, no code tools. So yeah, I would say data literacy is really important. Everyone should try and learn some bit of working with data, understand what is data, where it is generated, where it is stored, stuff like that. And then when it comes to learning to code, don't do it just to get a high paying job. Do it if you really enjoy writing code, if you really enjoy thinking. You have to think all day long. So yeah. Like for me, I've tried it a few times. I do know a little bit of code, but I just don't see myself sitting and writing code for hours, because I like working on business side of things. I like selling solutions. I like understanding people's problems. So that's definitely not for me, even though I might be good at it at some point, but that's not really what I want to do. So yeah.
Great. And what I'm hearing a lot is there's this convergence taking place, and I'm wondering, if there's a generational aspect to this. You have the digital natives. You have people coming into the workforce now, millennials. I guess anybody born after, before 1990, or even before. I'm dating myself here. Before anybody born before the year 2000 actually is coming into the workforce now. Wow, time flies. So this is a digital native generation, right? They grew up on the internet. They grew up using the internet, using phones, mobile phones, smartphones, laptops, iPads, and so forth. They're used to digital services, using digital services, being online. They're coming into the workforce. They're probably, I'm not going to generalize here, but it's likely they're a little bit more computer savvy than the older folks, folks like me, the baby boomers who, been around for a while and had to kind of learn by the seat of their pants. So is this convergence going to help the software take over the world, the growth of the software-driven company, where you have this generation of people who understand the power of computing, as well as IT folks who are under pressure and are increasingly becoming more business driven, who understand the business more? Are these two worlds coming together? That's what I'm trying to get at. And Joita, what are you seeing?
Definitely. From where I sit, you're absolutely, bang on the buck, 100%. Specifically because we are no code for data science. So data science has a lot of applications in businesses. You use it to figure out things. So we're definitely seeing the two merge. We're seeing techies use our product to make sense of how businesses work. And then we're seeing a lot of business users, almost 80% of our users are business who are wanting to upgrade to a bit more skills so they can, meet midway. So what you're saying is real. There is like the silos are getting blurred. That being said, I think there'll always be the small niche in both sides of the spectrum. They'll probably never merge, the highly specialized vertical guys. But by and large, definitely they're merging. I definitely see that as a trend.
Okay. And Philip, do you see these worlds coming together? Is the millennial generation adopting computing and systems driven or technology driven thinking a lot more readily? Which is paving the way for things.
Absolutely. And as I already said, this could be very, very empowering. But I think what we shouldn't forget is that the technical aspect is only one part of the solution, right? You also have to build a business model around this. And I think the more easy it is to adapt the technological part of the business, the more important the business model will become. And so if people master this, as you said, putting the two things together, I think they are well equipped. Yeah, but I hope that there will still be a place for a business school in this game as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Arpit, what do you see happening out there?
Right. So, well, I definitely, I don't know if they're converging, but I definitely see a lot of business people wanting to know what's going on the engineering side, and a lot of engineering people wanting to know what's going on the business side. Even in our team, whenever we meet, on a day-to-day basis, it's really hard to have everyone on the same page. But when we meet in person and we are a remote company, there's a lot of chatter. The business folks really want to understand what the techies are doing, and the engineers really want to understand what the business guys are doing. And so they're I don't think there is a perfect I would say synergy, or I don't know how it will happen, but yeah, that's definitely happening. A lot of engineering people do want to work on business side of things. They do want to contribute, and similarly, business guys do want to work on the product side of things and understand what's going on. And the lines are definitely blurring, but there is a divide, and I don't know if that's going to go away anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. And Ben, you talked about this convergence as well a little bit earlier, and are you seeing that? Is the workforce more computer savvy, and therefore, and the IT side of things more business savvy?
Well, I've experienced this firsthand. Of just because I'm good at building with no code doesn't make me any better at running a business. It doesn't. It's a completely different skill set. Both, but yeah, just because you're now empowered to build doesn't mean the business side just takes care of itself. Building a business still has all the same hurdles that you would have if you code or not code. So I think, it's always a mix, and I think I agree with everyone really, and think of it as there's still separate skill sets and different people, and with others that there is some merging, but I don't know where those lines are. But I think that the millennials are used to having things that are like the click of a button, everything's really quick. We're all lazy. We want everything as fast as possible. But that also drives more no code, low code apps that can empower my parents, for example. So Universe is one of those tools you can build a website, not a mobile app. You use a mobile app to build a fully functional website in a different way that feels intuitive. So this is the fun sort of merging of the different worlds, I think, that we'll see more of, is taking the spin of how we see things to someone like my parents to pick that up in their own ways and feel intuitive no matter which sort of stage you're born in.
Okay, great. And Frank, I'm curious. We're getting ready to wrap up things here. I'd love to get your feel about what kind of apps, what kind of applications, what kind of task, what kind of tasks are you seeing developed on no-code, low-code platforms these days? John Rymer talked about increasing sophistication and core applications. Where's the market? Where's the sweet spot of the market right now?
Yeah, yeah, that's an interesting question because what we see is a kind of a landscape of different no-code solutions that target different problem domains and that can play nicely together and complement each other. So we see a lot of us, for example, now in website building, yeah, with products like Webflow. Rubble helps certainly in that area. So that's one part, one segment. Then we see a lot tools, or not, yeah, some tools focusing on integration, like Arpit here from Integromat can tell stories about that, I guess. So integration is definitely an area. We see some vendors targeting specific verticals or very specific niches, and in our case, it's more, so we are focusing on back office processes. And I think that's what also John was talking about. Yeah? So systems that help with the actual operations of a business. And, hello? There was some voice. Yeah, so what I think is the market is still young, and over the time we will see in all those different segments some convergence and some leading players. And with those leading players, we will also see more adoption in really core processes of organizations. So right now, I think for large corporate customers, for their very core processes, they are still relying on systems like SAP, Oracle, and so on. But in the future, I can imagine that this shifts more and more to platforms that are able to deliver more quickly and adapt more quickly to changes.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. And I think we have reached the end of our time, if I'm correct. We're ready to move on to the next panel of our digital conference. I want to thank everyone for being here with us today. Joita Das, Arpit Chowdhury, Ben Tossel, Philip Meissner, Frank Bomer. Much appreciated. This has been a great discussion, and it was great having you all on today to talk about the issues and the opportunities. Low code, no code.
It was truly great. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
It's been great. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Guys.
And we're going to move on now. Our next moderator, Dr. Philip Flippin, is a senior manager at LRN Lab by Energy Consulting, and is focused on enabling organizations to tackle digital transformation. So Philip, take it away.
Thank you very much, Joe. I'm happy to be here, and hello to everybody. I'm even happier that I can actually introduce our guest for a fireside chat that we're going to have for the next 15 minutes. Our guest is Dr. Soares, as you can already see here. Welcome, Dr. Soares. Hello. Dr. Soares will share his experience of using a no-code platform to actually build a healthcare application in under 2 weeks during the COVID-19 crisis in Madrid, Spain. Dr. Soares, great to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? My understanding is that you don't have a development background. You're not a developer, is that correct?
Yeah, good afternoon, Philip. Thank you very much for the opportunity. We are 2 doctors in a hospital in Madrid, Dr. Mendez and me, that developed the application and the calculator. Indeed, I have never worked as a developer. My first contact with developing application has been with Ninox. But there are many doctors interested in using apps, in useful tools, in the practical medicine, and that's my case. I start to use it, and it's very simple using the no-code applications.
Okay, cool. So you're a medical doctor. You used a no-code platform, in this case Ninox, to develop an application. Tell us a little bit about the problem that you solved, the application that you developed. So you're in the midst of the crisis. Spain was hit hard by COVID-19 among many of the European countries, one of the hardest hit. What exactly was the problem that we were trying to solve?
Well, for a start, I have to say that COVID arrived just 6 months ago, and it seems that it's here to stay. And nobody has able to foresee the magnitude of the impact of COVID-19 on healthy systems. The main problem were the rapid expansion, the severity of the disease, the number of the sick people, and the absence of a specific treatment. And people who have gone wrong have often gotten worse in very short time that we can care. And our apps provides unified stratification of the patient based on different parameters and individualized therapy measures according to a patient's situation, each of one. And it's very helpful tool for experienced doctors, for example. And besides, the continuous changing on recommendation or this recommendation on treatments could be updated every day. That it's crazy to standardize this. Other benefit of the app is the capacity of recording all the patient characteristics that simplifies data collection and analysis or investigations a lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the problem was many patients were coming to the ER, and you had to deal with a very new sickness. You had no treatment for it yet. You didn't know about the development. It's something that came to stay, and you somehow had to manage the logistics. Mm-hmm. So one way you did was using that platform to actually develop a database that allowed you to do some diagnosis and then categorize these patients according to the severeness of their sickness or the prognosis that you made about the development of the sickness. Is that correct?
Yes, indeed. With this tool, by introducing a series of weighted variables, which are the one of usually is recorded in emergency medical practice, the risk of each patient is stratified. This is classified in a group from 1 to 5. A level of the care is proposed: intensive care, hospital admission, or home discharge, depending on the severity. And in the event of discharge, a degree of telephone follow-up consultation is offered. And furthermore, based on this classification, we could give treatment advice that can vary depending on scientific advances and the protocols used in each center, but it could be modified so easy and so fast. And that is so useful.
Wow, so it allows you to actually very fast and then easily assess the risk of the patients according to 5 risk groups, and it can be used by all doctors in your hospital.
In the emergency department, and we have been using it for 2 months for now.
You used it for 2 months now. How long did it actually take you to create this application using no code?
In creating the application, that's really little. It's very, very simple, just a few hours to create the application. But in the other hand, selecting the objective, choosing the variables to use, searching the validity, ensuring that decisions are correct, etc., that was the most complicated long task, with numerous meetings, bibliographic searches, discussion with colleagues. That's what they were. What I think.
Okay, so basically you're saying coming up with the concept and the underlying calculations that need to be done to assess the risk level of the patients coming to the ER. That was something that took some time amongst you and your colleagues, discussing, figuring out what could be the proper correct way. How long would you say did that take you?
Thinking about the application, the concept of the application.
Yes.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. And after you came up with the final concept and you had a common decision on how to approach and how to assess the risk levels, how long did it take you to actually do the coding?
To do the coding, just a few hours with no coding. It's just 5 or 7 hours in the afternoon. We do it. That's awesome.
Just one person and under a day, so to say. Oh, this is pretty impressive. And do you have a background working with applications, creating applications, working with databases?
What? I didn't hear you. Sorry.
Do you have a background working like as a hobby or something like that? Because that seemed very fast.
No,
working with databases or creating applications?
Excel, Access, but not. I'm not a developer. I've never used it.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, spreadsheet.
Create another basis in Ninox before, and not similar like this in other lines of investigation. But so I have experience of Ninox, and it was so easy for me.
Yeah. So you were already a little bit familiar with the environment of Ninox. Wow. I mean, this must be a great thing, especially since your time is so valuable, given the crisis and this lack of doctors that we have worldwide, basically. It's great that this is possible nowadays. So all the doctors using this application in the ER to assess the risk levels of patients, what kind of input do they provide? What is the data that gets into the risk calculation and that you enter in your platform or in your application?
What's the variables that we use?
Exactly, the variables that you use. Just give us a few as an example so we get an idea of, you know.
Okay. And we stratify by age of the patients, the date of the symptoms, some variables, analytic variables like CPR, urea, then radiography, all the comorbidities of the patients and the saturation of the oxygen. And every variable is ponderated, but a variable number, and it stratifies the risk. And we are now validating these applications with in the scientific world that it's so hard.
Okay, so using that data actually to support the research that is done on COVID-19, on Corona. Yeah.
We use Ninox for this, for the calculator in the emergency, and for other investigations, and that we are now doing in the hospital with another medication.
That is great. Given the fact that you also use the data to do your research, I assume you rely on a community, in a scientific community, to share your ideas and generate as much data as possible, usually. Or are you planning on using this application or given access of this application to any other hospitals, or has that already been done yet?
We want to spread, we want to promotionate around the world if we can, to use to can help another unexpected doctors that don't have suffered the COVID like us, but it could worse than ours, and we want to promotionate this to have a useful tool to stratify and to collect data. It's so important to collect data and unified collect data for make investigation to research is basic, and we don't have investigation now.
Yeah.
Not enough.
You don't have enough investigation. You don't know enough about the disease, about the virus. I understand.
Yes.
The community that you're working with and doing research, do they also use this platform yet? Do they also use the tool that you built to gather data of their patients? And if so, maybe you can tell us the number of hospitals, for example, that are using this tool.
We are being using in 15 hospitals in Spain and 11 in Latin America. We have already many hundreds of patients included in the database,
Mm-hmm.
And
How many patients?
I thought that 800.
800 patients in the database. And you said about 15 hospitals in Spain, 11 in America Latina.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All
Yes.
right. Wow, that's quite a large number given the fact that this tool is live for what, 6 weeks, 8 weeks?
Yes, but we are a group of hospitals,
Mm-hmm.
and our chief spread the calculator and use it a lot, and the people think that it's very useful, and the feedback is very good.
Nice. Yeah. Can you give us some idea about the feedback that you receive? What is that people like a lot about this tool?
They think that it's so easy, so fast to introduce the patients, and the information that they have it's so useful that they can stratify the patient, the risk of the patients, and advice of the treatment. That's for the doctors that don't have experience in the disease. It is basic.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So all the good things, yeah. It's
making decisions.
Say that again, please.
And you can allows you making decisions.
Yeah, it gives you a good base to make your decisions whether patients can actually go home, right, or have to stay
on the intensive care,
or actually have to be admitted to intensive care. Yeah. Also, usually, probably very tough decisions to make in that situation.
And we want, if any hospital in any clinic around the world wants to join us, I will send the email in the chat, and I will share the password and the user, and can join us.
Yeah, that is great. We make sure that we provide your data and contacts so people can get in touch with you and actually help to collaborate on investigating and doing research on COVID-19 and come up with treatments and a cure and vaccinations. Given the fact that by now quite a few of your colleagues are using this tool globally, you already gave us an insight. You said mostly they're very happy with it. They like it a lot because it's fast, it's easy to use. It's a nice way to collect the data. Are there any things that your colleagues are asking for? Anything that they wish that tool could also provide that needs to be added?
If they want what? Sorry?
If they want any improvements on the tool, are there also complaints about it? What would be the next step of it, so to say?
This is a beta for SET, and they want to improve. They want to make more tools in the calculator, and they send us a suggestion for this, and we are now improving the application.
So you're working on the mechanics and the calculations, but not so much on the interface yet.
Yes.
Yes. Nice. Very good. Thanks a lot. Since you do have a little of experience, or had a little of experience with using Ninox in that case, so a no-code tool, but also now quite some experience creating that tool. What would you think the next step in, let's say, the no-code development for what we call citizen developers, such as you, where people that actually are in another business but use no-code tools to support their business? What should be or could be the next step in that movement and that development? What would you like to see?
In healthy or in global?
Now, for you as an expert in the health world, would be great to know from the healthcare sector, what would you love to see when it comes to no-code tools? Maybe from the top of your head.
I want that in the future we can create apps with no code, so it's so easy, and can create a global database and can share all the dates so easy, and we can improve the research in the future, and it will be fantastic.
Great, great, great. And I'm sure that won't take much long anymore. Dr. Soares, really great to have you here. Thank you very much. According to our agenda, we have to move on to the next point now. Thanks for taking the time, especially during these days. Very valuable. We make sure that your contact data is available if someone wants to connect, if someone wants to support the research community and your work. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you.
For the time, for the opportunity, and from Spain, so greetings. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Adios.
Adios.
All right. That was Dr. Soares with a very exciting and also very helpful application of the no-code platform at current times. We now move on to the last topic on our agenda, last point on our agenda, community panel. And we're going to run a panel discussion with a number of no-code community leaders, actually from around the world, who join our panel today, and they're going to share their stories and also discuss the future of the no-code movement. And I'd like them to come up here on the cyber stage and slowly but surely say a little bit about them, introduce them real quick. We see our first guest, well-known face here, Daniel Abebe, welcome. And I also see Joshua Tiernan, JT from No Code founders. We have Eric here, Eric Israni. I hope I pronounced that right. I was asking up front, but no one could really tell. Hi, Eric, welcome. We have Gonzalo Enriquez from No Codery. Hi, how you doing? And we have Stephen Chen from CollabX. Guys, great to have you here. Take it from here and just let us know who you are, what you do in the no-code space real quick, so everybody gets an idea, and then I'll join you again with the first question. Daniel, do you want to take it real quick?
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me back into the event. So yeah, my name is Daniel, and I'm based in Switzerland. Actually, I don't know if you can see right now, but that's how beautiful Switzerland is. I don't know if you can see the mountains behind that. So I'm focusing a lot on creating a community during meetups in different cities in Switzerland, but also just launched Berlin. And the idea behind that is basically just to help entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs to understand what no-code is, because what I see is always like, yeah, no-code is fun, but what can it actually do? So I'm bringing people together to showcase real stories and help them get started.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you very much. Josh, or JT, if I may call you so, because this is how I met you the first time, actually, I think. What is that you do in the no-code space?
Yeah, so I'm a entrepreneur, I guess, and no code has always been my route to building things. Best known for running the No Code Founders community. So that's a Slack channel. We're about almost 2,000 members, and we chat about everything to do with no code and hopefully also launching that into a business. So basically a support group for one another. And we post as well content, so interviews with no code founders, and people from the community share insights on our blog. And yeah, so I mean the whole point is really to try and empower no code makers to turn them into full-blown businesses, basically.
Well, great to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric, maybe you pronounce your last name just
sure.
to make sure for me. What do you do with no code?
Yeah, so my name is Eric Israni. I work at Bubble. I'm the startup evangelist. And what that means is I not only evangelize and promote Bubble and the larger no-code community to entrepreneurs and, honestly, anyone who has that founder mindset, that spark in them and they want to build something. But I also evangelize our community to each other, right? I aid in the connections that are being created. I help people find each other, and I'm actively taking what we have in a very robust online community, and I'm giving it all new facets for people to connect, whether it be our in-person meetups, whether it be our Pioneer program, which is our ambassador program, we call them Pioneers, or even the new boot camps that we've just launched as of late, which are helping people learn, but they're doing it in a communal aspect, they're doing it in groups, and they're given all these community tools thereafter. Because at the end of the day, if you're building a business, while we think of most no coders as being solo founders, anytime you look to scale, you're going to need everyone else around you. You're going to need access to talent and to co-founders and to partners and investors. And so building that community is incredibly important to seeing the whole of no code succeed.
Yeah, I agree. Great to have you. Thank you. And I wasn't that much off with pronouncing your last name.
You did great.
Gonzalo, hey, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about you and your passion?
Hey, afternoon, everyone. I run a no-code job board / learning center. It started as when I moved to product management. I was an engineer, moved to product management, and I started to look for ways to build prototypes faster. So I learned about no-code, and that was fast enough to find that there were a lot of people on Twitter and around internet looking for ways to do apps faster and looking for people to help them out with these no-code tools that were popping up all over the place. That's why no-codery was born, was to help people to make money with their skills and help people to find people that has those skills to help them out. We're now moving into helping people to understand and not learn code. So there's a lot of ways to do apps without needing to learn code. So there's new ways easier. So we're moving to there, and now we're trying to help people from the ground up. So if you wanna, since the beginning without knowing anything and building an app and then making money out of it.
Great. Also very happy to have you. And last but definitely not least, Stephen Chen. Let us know what you do in the no-code space, please.
Sure. Hey guys, my name's Steven. I'm the founder of CollabX. We're a community of early stage founders teaching fellow founders through mini masterclasses. So having a community of founders, no code is a super popular topic. We've had multiple workshops of founders showing how they built landing pages, founders showing how they use different zaps to kind of automate different business processes. So very popular. Us as a startup company ourselves, we're also using a variety of no-code tools ourselves to build the company. So I found that to be great because now the time, money, and energy that I would have had to spend on a developer, I'm able to hire a community manager. So yeah, love no-code.
Great. I think you're in good company. We have a very strong panel. Happy to have you guys here, and I want the discussion to get going. So let's jump right in with the first question. Why is it time for no-code? What do you think? It would be great to get some of your perspectives on why the time is right for the no-code revolution, or second digital revolution, as we call also the series here. And maybe we start off with Daniel, because he had the longest time to recover from his introduction.
Yes, I definitely have my thoughts on that. And so there are different components that come together. And I would say, and that's basically very local and mostly backed on feelings and not statistics. But I would say like that there are so many people willing to start their own business right now. And so many people are trying hard to do so in the digital space. And at the same time, there's a huge shortage of software engineers, and the salary are just skyrocketing. So people are getting really expensive. It's very hard to get those people working for you. And at the same time, if you want to start your own business and you want a co-founder, then you're basically, chasing this one guy or one girl that 20 people are chasing. And that's like, I would even say no code is too late. So that's the reason why it's such a good timing, because we all had so many frustrations, so many issues that we had to deal with. I personally invested like 35K for an agency to build a product that had absolutely no market, had debt, took some money from my brother as well, just to build that. And that was 6 years ago or 7 years ago. And no code was only starting. So if no code was there back then, it would have the exact same success. I could bet that. It's mostly about the digitalization going really hardcore right now, and at the same time, the lack of software engineers, I would say.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Who wants to add something to this? Do you agree on this perspective, or you have a rather somewhat different perspective?
I agree with what Daniel's saying there. I think there's a big desire for, in general, people want to start businesses or find ways to make additional income. And until now, or until recently, there's been this block, the stumbling block, for people that they've got to learn to code, spend a year doing that, and then they might not even be at a level to build something. So I think that's a big thing. And the other thing is, like what Daniel's saying, is the cost can be incredibly low. So like for me, I'm running about 6 websites at the moment, and in total I pay less than $100 a month type thing. So my costs are so much lower than they would have been. And the other thing is, I think why now is because until recently, like Bubble and now other tools like Builder, they are like a kind of new level up in no code for the everyday person, that you can actually build software as opposed to just like websites and landing pages, which we've been able to do, for 10 years type thing. So I think the rise of those tools is just opening up a whole new world.
So it's ways to make money. It's saving costs to build something and actually get the ability and the capability of building something, and then not needing the pro developer to come up with the first solutions. You mentioned Bubble, Joshua. Talking to Eric or looking at Eric, how do you perceive that situation at Bubble currently? Is it a good time for code?
Yeah, this is, for those of you who don't know, Bubble has been around since 2012, right? We have been in this no code space from before it was really called no code. And we've been building this because we truly believe in the democratization of technology and in moving people from a place where they're consuming software to actually building software. And I think a large part of that was because of what Daniel said, where there's a shortage of quality developers. But I also think it's because we're getting to a point as a society where we are our understanding of technology is such a point where we know what programming is intuitively. And so we don't all need to learn how to code and speak in these languages if there are ways for us to build this abstraction on top of that and tell it what we want to do. We understand that when you click a link, you want to travel somewhere. Then when we hit update on our profile, we want a database to change accordingly. So many of us already have these skill sets, these understandings that are commonplace. Now we just need a place to put into action. And that's why I think the timeliness of no code is perfect right now, this whole wave. But the other thing I think is a larger economic factor, right? Is this changing perception of the traditional path of an entrepreneur. The last 10 years, we've seen people raise tremendous amounts of money and go on to create enormous businesses for them only to fail, right? And that path is only available to a narrow percentage of people. And so there's this disenchantment with the entire thing, this idea of being a founder. And what no code is, it's offering up this egalitarian option. You can build something, you can solve a local problem. You don't need VC money. You don't have to look a certain way or live in a certain city to solve real problems, deliver real value. And I think people are finally realizing that there are other options and other ways to live.
Mm-hmm. You're speaking of an important aspect that you come along quite some time when you look into the no-code space. It's the democratization of development of software engineering, basically, or software. Given access to the ability to actually build your applications beyond landing pages, implement functions, so to do some programming without coding, so to say. What do you guys think? What are the main development tasks that are now within the reach for non-technical people, for citizen developer, but also where you see the limitations? And then looking at Gonzalo, what's your take on this?
Actually, I came from an engineering background, so it's. I think it's about giving the power to anyone to build application quality instead of just websites. And I can give a couple of examples. The other day I talked with a lawyer in the UK that didn't have any job right now because of the COVID-19, and he was able to build an app in $1 so he could use with his family. Or the case of Wunderlist that was shut down was an app that a lot of people used. I had a person that went to a course that we have in Codery, and he was able to build his own version of Wunderlist so he could use with his family. So it's about that. It's about you just have to understand a couple of concepts like collections or connections or actions, and that's quite easy to understand. You don't need a course. You don't need to spend a lot of time understanding functions or hard code to get something out the door, and don't need to spend a lot of money or trying to find a co-founder, a technical co-founder, or building anything. So I think it's about that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Great. Stephen, you working a lot with founders. You probably come across a lot of crazy or bold ideas that go way beyond the classical landing page that we've just mentioned here, or functions that we've seen a lot of times. How do you perceive the limitations of the no-code space currently, or the solutions that are out there, but also what is possible? Can you actually see the limits, and if so, which are they?
I mean, I would say starting with the limitations. Let's say we're looking at low-code tools, for instance. I think there is still that barrier of you do need a developer when it comes to low-code tools for the most part. So I think that is still a barrier. It's kind of similar to a lot of SaaS businesses where it's like the biggest barrier is to get that first penny, right? Once you get that first penny, it becomes a lot easier. So I think no-code kind of has a similar challenge. That being said, looking at no-code tools in general, like I think the fact that people spend less time on development gives them a lot more time for creativity, and as you said, to kind of explore crazy, wild ideas, right? So I think we'll actually see an explosion in kind of creativity and to kind of see new types of businesses that we've never seen before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much. Eric, I was wondering when we talk about what's possible and where the limitations, maybe from a bubble point of view, where would you say are the limits currently?
Sure. The limits that I tend to let people know about are if you're doing any kind of truly advanced algorithms, anything with machine learning, anything with artificial intelligence, then it's not something that you are going to be able to bake right into your Bubble app. And whether it be Bubble or any other no-code tool, that's why I think the most successful of them will have a certain amount of extensibility built into them, so that you can go and you can find those tools and you can add them to what you're doing. And so for us, that's what we highlight to people, is those two big things, because we do get questions on that a lot. Beyond that, we are a web application platform. So we're a web first platform. And while we don't like recommending that people have to code, there are some things with us that you're going to have to code if you want to get that experience. Most notably, if you want to make a mobile application out of your Bubble app, you're going to need a little bit of help, and it might require a little bit of coding to get there.
Okay. So it comes to when it goes beyond the limitations that your platform is meant to, it's not a real limitation, but it needs some additional tweaks, either skills of coding or an additional tool that can be somehow connected and solve your problem, or integrated and solve your problem. All right. All you guys are supporting and promoting communities in the low-code and no-code space, and doing a lot for the development of no-code, for the acceptance of no-code. Why do you think communities are such an important aspect? And how do your community members actually do help each other, support each other? JT, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, I think no-code's at the stage that it's still, like, the term no-code isn't widespread, and because of that, there needs to still be a lot of evangelism done of no-code in general. So I think for that reason, there is so much space for collaboration at the moment, and I think that's why there are such great collaborative things going on. Like Sacco did the No Code Rumble, where all these different makers were coming together and building products and releasing them as a team, and even like this event. So I think a big part of it is evangelism, and for sure the no code community is one of the most supportive communities I've found online. Certainly on Twitter. So yeah, I think it's just I think it's a very special time for no code at the moment.
Would you agree, Daniel? Is this your perception and observation as well? Is this community a special community? And if so, why is it so helpful? Why is it so special?
So I think there's a slight difference between JT and myself. JT has a huge community of no-code people who are already into no-code. If I'm right, and I'm going into physical meetings trying to turn people who are not into no-code into no-code fans. So I'm into like this sales pitch, and for me it's a lot about showing what is possible, and that's why I need a community. Because if it was not for Bubble, I would have never knew anything about no code. Because I think it was AirDev who built a product with Bubble, which was an exact copy of Twitter back then. And I saw that and I was like, "Wow, that's not possible." If someone who doesn't know how to code build that, then there's an entire new world that is waiting for me. And that's when it hit me hard. And if nobody would have sent me this link, I would have never knew how to build stuff, and that would be kind of a very bad scenario of my entrepreneurship journey. And basically, what I'm trying to do is be this exact feeling of that link towards Swiss people I don't know yet. So the community is not very like active so far, being like coaching each other, but I see that the word is spreading and people are reaching out and say like they heard of him who heard of him who heard about that from one of the meetups. I think that's one of the beauty of no code. You can show things, you can share things, and then it grows fast.
So many showcases, but if I hear you correctly, some room for improvement as well. Coaching each other. Yeah.
On my side, I think JT is doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about communities in general, and not into the specific communities of you guys, since I don't really have the insights what's going on there. Yeah, definitely. But talking about your communities, if you like to, Gonzalo, the no codery. Why do you think the community that you build is important? Why do you think the community is important in general if we want to promote no-code solutions and its acceptance?
Well, in our case, it's a bit different. Like in the no-code tools communities, it helps a lot to improve the product and understand people's problems and how we can improve their lives and improve or solve their problems. So like Bubble and Adalo and Builder, they have those communities to help that we already have. We still have a small community helping us out. No codery, but it has been really powerful to understand which way to go. And that's how we understood that we needed to become also a learning platform too, because people are trying to understand and how to build stuff without needing to know code. I think it's, and the human being is drawn together to common goals. So that's why communities are so powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much. And Stephen, your take on the importance of community and on your observation of its current state in the no-code space.
I would say on two levels. High level, as there's better and better no-code tools, there will be more and more products out there. And I think higher level, as there's more and more products that kind of hit the market, the ones that stand out are the ones that are going to have a strong audience or a strong community. So I think, from an investor standpoint, from a consumer standpoint, community will be a differentiator for a lot of companies building products. From our community specifically, our community is founders teaching other founders. So I kind of like to view it as community democratizes education in the same way that no code democratizes software development. So, if you have a community, now anyone in the community can kind of teach each other. And I think to me, that's something that's very powerful about communities.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Democratization and teaching each other. All right. And then Eric, since Stephen mentioned, it's also a way to set a company apart, building a community. What's your take on community and you guys' strategy?
Sure. And so for Bubble specifically, we use the community to not only differentiate ourselves, but also to help us scale quicker, right? We bring people in, we have this incredibly robust forum. And so anytime there's a question, instead of trying to build out a very discrete FAQ, we went ahead and we encourage people to communicate with each other and help us answer these questions. And in the beginning, if you go back to the earliest of posts, you'll see Emmanuel and Josh, our co-founders, are on there answering all the questions as fast as possible, helping build what became a searchable FAQ for our early users. And eventually, as people got passionate about the project and they got more involved, you start to see all the people helping each other. And people, honestly, there are people out there that love to do this. I'm one of these people, right? There are these people who naturally want to see others succeed and they don't want anything in return. And I think that in the larger respect and in the larger bend of the universe, one of the reasons I got into this job, and I think a lot of the people on the panel here got into this job, is because you're seeing that this is kind of the new way of living life, of doing business, right? You had the boomer generation and the way they did business. You had the yuppies, and it was very much about like personal achievement, about moving forward alone, about like, you know, that pioneer mindset where me alone on my shoulders, I can do this. And I think for subsequent generations, you're seeing that people like, no, we can build a community. We can all pull in the same direction and we can do fantastic things together. And that's why an audience is becoming so important. And then when you're building that audience, what do you do with that audience? You're not just going to sell them something. You're going to give them something of real value, something meaningful to them. Otherwise, it's not worth anything, right? And so that's where the community aspect in a tactical way has really come to fruition, because now you have this audience, you have these people engaging with your product. How do you give them maximum amount of value that they want to be here? They want to be part of this experience, and that's through community.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I really very much like it. Many of you mentioned community is about actually helping each other, supporting each other in each project. You just specifically said you love to see people succeed. This is a great starting point to actually build a new skill set. If you look nowadays, there's more than 1 billion spreadsheet users out there, and being able to use a spreadsheet is a skill you put on a resume. And this is something people in business still look for. Personally, working in consulting, I'm always happy if I have colleagues who are very skilled in Excel because they can do the work much faster than I can. But times seem to be changing, or at least we're assuming that it's going to be. So what do you guys think, also having so much insights in various no-code users and members of your community, what do you guys think the skill set of the future could be? What would be skills that you in the future put in your resume and people actually do look for it? Maybe we start with you, Gonzalez. You have a job board as well, so I'm assuming you have quite some insights in that.
Well, my job board is specific for no-code tools, so it's a special skill set. So it's people that know that tool specifically, like they know Bubble to a level that is like higher level, or they know Integromat, or they know Zapier. I think that's valuable, but I think that more than that, people need to understand product and have a product mindset. Because nowadays it's really easy to make products and make everything or put it out there so people can test it out. It's better if you understand how a product works or no. Building a product should be really a skill set or a skill that you should like improve for the future. Because putting out there and then doesn't get any traction, doesn't get any users, you don't solve any problems. So what are you going to do after that? Like you can build something on a weekend with any no-code tool, but after that, what do you do? So I think it's very valuable to understand how a product works and how you start a product and how you make money out of it. So you don't like fail a lot of times, but faster. It's good to fail faster and fail fast, but at least try to understand how to fail and understand that.
Fail fast, but don't fail all the time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Stephen, what do you think? Also looking at your founders, what is the skill set? Maybe a stack of no-code tools, for example, that are people searching for in the future that will become very valuable also in business.
Yeah, something I'm seeing a lot in our founder community is people who previously would be titled like operations or some sort of operations role are diving really deep into all the different automation tools. So they're building these super complex, like 50-step zaps to kind of simplify some business processes. So I definitely see that happening right now. I think we could see a future where the COO is really kind of someone who's an operations architect. Instead of a technical architect, you have an operations architect, and he's the guy who knows how all these different automation tools hook up and connect with one another.
Mm-hmm. So automation is the main focus currently, right?
Currently, yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably over a bunch of more years. If we have listened to John Rymer and understood him correctly as well. And then maybe last but not least, on this question, Daniel, what's your take on this? What do you think a good no-code, low-code stack will be in the future? You're still on mute.
Sorry. So what's the same question or another question? Sorry.
Yeah, it's the same question. So what's the skill set of the future is going to be valuable when it comes to no code?
So I think there are two main parts. The first one was very well explained by Eric, which was actually programming or product development, as you mentioned before. Programming is the skill that so many people spoke about so far, but now the tools and platforms that make it possible are not per se writing code. So that's definitely something, meaning how to structure data, how to work around this data, And the second part is actually something that still decides whether or not your product is going to work or not, is to put the human in the center, the customer of your application. And this is by design or by empathy or just understanding what people actually need and want. So I think those two skills combined make a killer no-code builder that anyone would like to have on board.
That's a cool take on this. Guys, we have a little more time for a few quick answers to our last question. And this is given the skill sets that you have just described and that are potentially very valuable in the future. How should you get started on developing these? Yeah, say I want to move in the no-code space. What would be a recommendation? Where to head it off? Where to go first? Let's start with you, Joshua, if you like, and then move on to Eric.
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of routes. I think you can use education services like MakerPad and other things. There's quite a few out there now that are doing a great job. For me personally, like I'm a very practical learner. So I think one of the great things of no-code tools is you can just kind of start trying to build something straight away and tinker around, and there's not really any serious consequences when things go wrong, and just learn from your mistakes. And for me, that's the way that I got started with Bubble. So I think it just depends on your personal learning style, I guess.
So go to places like MakerPad or just get your hands dirty, pick a tool and play around with it. Yeah. Okay. Eric, your recommendation.
Yeah, so I
might have an idea.
One is community, right? Definitely engage with the community. Find one that you like, poke around, start engaging. Actually, I'm gonna make it 3. 2 is check out the boot camps on Bubble. We've launched a series of educational boot camps, and we also run a bunch of free classes through our event series, so you can pick up Bubble very easily through those things. And then the last thing I'll say is really engage with what's stopping you. And for a lot of people, it's fear. And it's the fear of starting, it's the fear of failure, it's the fear of what other people will say when you put together a project and you put it out there and it's not exactly what you want it to be. It's not your dream, and you get that feedback, right? And if you ignore that, if you put that aside and you start to think about the fact that if you don't start now, if you don't immediately start building and shipping things, you're never going to get to a point where it is something that people love. The average entrepreneur, I keep this in the back of my mind. I've heard this stat several times over the years. They fail 5, 6, 7 times before they hit something. And what's incredible about no code is you can fail in a much shorter period of time than you would otherwise. And so if you remove the fear of failure and the fear of not shipping a perfect item, then you're going to have success well before you're anyone else, really. Anyone else who's doing this the traditional method, who is holding themselves up by not just jumping in and doing it.
Overcome your fears. Yeah, it's good advice. Good advice. Tough to do. Good advice, though. Gonzalez, and Stephen, and then last words from Daniel, please.
Well, I'd say the same as Joshua and Eric. You get into a community, try stuff first, go to some of the learnings and boot camps or anywhere there's like MakerPad. We know because we have some courses already. Like get an idea, try to build a clone of something, try like something that you really want or want to try it out. Just try it out, put it out there, get some feedback, and then go back to the drawing board. Get the feedback is essential, and that for the community, it's there.
Yeah, great. And Stephen, your take on this?
Yeah, I'll just tack on to Eric's point about the fear. I think with the tools available today, there's almost no excuse not to start, to kind of put it bluntly. So will it be perfect? Of course not. But with the tools today, for 95% of businesses, you could probably prototype. You could probably launch a decent prototype and at least get started. So that's what I would say.
Just be brave and do it. Okay, guys. I would say, Daniel, 1 second, I mentioned you, but I want to do the handover since you will have the closing comments again. Thank you guys for taking the time, giving us the insights. I'm sure you'll be able to connect to the audience or have already done so. It was great seeing some of you again, and it was great getting to know some of you for the first time. Hope and sure to see you around. Take care and have a good wherever you are right now. Yeah. Okay, bye-bye. Daniel, you and your last recommendation on where to start, and then I will also hand it over to you.
Yep.
Turn off my video, say thank you to everyone here for listening and for joining us, to Ninox for the great event, and let you to it, so to say.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you very much. It was a great discussion.
Yeah.
And yeah, my last recommendation, of course, what really helped me was I had this project and I actually had no solution. So I really had this project I wanted to build. And when you have a project you need to build or you want to build, then you also have like this motivation to do it on a longer run and to learn everything you need to do actually. So yeah, they kept me here in the chat because I'm very happy to actually introduce you guys to Alexander Koenig, who is the co-founder of Ninox. And Ninox is actually our event host tonight. So I'll give stage to Alexander, who will give us a bit more information about the second digital revolution team and what they have in store for the community down the road.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. Thank you very much for...
Alexander?
Yes, can you hear me? Hello?
We can hear you now.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, thanks, Daniel, for the introduction. And yeah, I wanted to make use of this moment quickly to thank everyone participating.
Am I the only one who cannot hear you properly?
No, it looks like.
It's much better now.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
No, sorry, it went back again. Maybe it's with the headphones. Yeah, okay. So people are texting, they cannot hear you. So we're fixing that, just 1 second.
I'm on the microphone now. On the internal microphone,
Perfect.
Is it better?
Yeah.
Okay, so everything went perfect until now. So good moment to mess it up. So yeah, I wanted to take the moment to thank everyone. So especially for your openness to participate. Yeah, and I think this pretty much shows the stage of no code where we are. So we are still very early. And I have to go to agree with JT. So it's the right time to evangelize, basically, because there's so much growth that lies ahead of us. Only 8% of the enterprises are using no code, and then not to the right extent. So there are so many opportunities coming up. And I think it's going to be a big time for no code. Yeah, and I also wanted to use this moment and thank everyone, thank the team behind the scenes, especially Morris and Niels for this great job that you were doing. Also the team at Onsite and at Ninox for helping for this event. Special thanks to our partners at Integromat, Arpit, and Jessica, also JT from No Code Founders, as well as Daniel, you for being excited from the very first moment we started this. Yeah, also very special thanks to all the partners involved today and on the stage or in the panels or in one of the upcoming conferences. Yeah, and last but not least, thanks to everyone attending this evening and for taking the time and already evangelizing the no-code movement. And also special thanks to our Ninox community, showing us every day what is possible with no-code and how problems are solved everywhere around the world. Yeah, so I think, yeah, that was the kickoff today for the second Digital Revolution Conference series. we're very open to get new ideas on board and discuss with everyone who wants to participate how this is going on from now. So let's keep us in touch and hope to see you soon.
And how can we be in touch? Can we find the Evincere on LinkedIn or other social networks?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think we have all the possibilities. So join the Slack group that was mentioned a couple of times in the chat. That is the best way. Reach out on LinkedIn.
Great. So make sure to join the Slack channel and to reach out on LinkedIn, so that you can follow up with all the future events.
I also really like the shared Google Sheet that someone put up. I will post it to the chat. So this was also a very good idea to keep in touch and leave your contact information here. Yeah, and thanks a lot for the interaction today. I think we created a lot of great content this afternoon. Was also very interesting to see John B. From Forrester, who was answering the Q&A. This can print basically. Yeah, it was a very, very interesting afternoon. And thanks, Daniel. Last words to you.
Well, just a very quick word, guys. If we're here tonight, and if all this was possible, was really thanks to the team behind the second digital revolution, mainly made of guys from Ninox. So thank you very much, Ninox. Thank you very much, Alexander. Thank you, Morris. Thank you, Niels, and thank you all the team that I'm not mentioning. So I hope you guys liked it. Feel free to give feedback so the event can improve over time. And as Alexander say, join the discussion on Slack for our future events. Have a nice evening, guys.